from yesterday to today because the minister requested it in view of the cabinet lekgotla, and the committee agreed that it made sense. The DM, I think, is on other duties, but with the minister here, that's fine enough. We move on then. The first, you've got the agenda, so unless you feel strongly otherwise, that's a guide. So we call upon the minister to say overview, and he will come in as and when necessary. This is a meeting that follows on the previous semi-aborted meeting, and the agenda, for those of you who don't have it, it's basically, have you got a copy there? It's basically, we're looking at the minister will provide a brief overview, and then we'll look at the key aspects of the shareholder compact, the corporate plan, and the turnaround strategy, following which we'll have a discussion. Then there are outstanding questions presented in writing that the SAA board has responded to, and so if there are further issues of clarity, we're not going to go through the questions, we take it, the answers, we take it, members have read that already. Then on the progress on cases of corruption, yet again this morning, over the news we gather from NUMSA and the Cabin Crew Association of SAA that one of their arguments is that there's rampant corruption in SAA, whether that's true or not, that's their argument at least, and they are on strike in regard to that in part. Then we look at the financials, and then finally issues around progress on the appointment of senior managers and transformation issues. That's fine as a guide. Obviously, we'll play it by ear and see how it goes. Over then to the minister. Thank you.
Chairperson, maybe let's allow people to take the papers in the meantime because we'll be obstructed.
Over to you, Minister.
Thank you again, Chairperson. Oops. And greetings, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. Some of our lenders are also here, and we welcome them too. I think it is appropriate, Chair, that one should start by, well, I should also greet the DG and the team from the department and apologize on behalf of the Deputy Minister who is on international duty overseas in Botswana. I think it's appropriate to start with an announcement that I'm sure you all have heard, that we appointed the CEO of SAA yesterday, Mr. Vuyani Jahana, who is an executive officer at Vodacom with extensive experience in business, turnaround, corporate leadership, management, operations, having spent quite a considerable amount of time as director of operations, then acting MD, then COO at Vodacom. He brings a wealth of experience which I think will be very vital for the airline. But as you know, the CEO on his own is not going to solve the challenges that are facing the airline. It's an important intervention, it's an important step. One of the 14 measures announced on the 13th of June, if I'm not mistaken, in the 14 confidence-boosting measures that we announced, where we indicated that by the end of July, we will appoint a new CEO at SAA. We've complied with that timeline. I think it's a demonstration of our commitment to the compliance of government with the timelines we announced then. There are many other things that will have to be done in the airline in order to turn it around and address the challenges which are being faced. And so the CEO, important as that decision is only but one step in a string of decisions that we need to make in order to address the challenges facing SAA. Over the last few years, between 2013 and 2017, there have been about 5 CEOs at SAA, and that includes acting CEs in the process. That basically means that at a leadership level, there hasn't been stability. When we appointed the previous CEO, Mr. Kalawe, we had made it emphatically clear that we would prefer that he stays for long. But obviously there were challenges which we are going to discuss with the incoming CEO, which relate to internal controls in the airline. Because unless we deal with those issues and establish very clear internal controls, we are likely to fall into the problems in which we have in the last few years fallen. It's important that we stabilize the governance process at SAA, including by filling up critical skills in the executive, in the ExCo. And those would include the fact that we have filled in the post of CFO, now we have a CEO. The board has appointed a chief restructuring officer to assist with the embedding of the turnaround strategy and its implementation as part of the corporate plan and the day-to-day work of the airline. There's a number of decisions that will need to be taken. We also need to fill in the post of chief commercial officer. We need to flatten the structure of the ExCo and the managers so that we don't create too many layers that delay decision-making at the airline. And we are able to move speedily from the origination of ideas to the point where decisions are made. Because as you will all know, SAA operates in an environment where decisions must be made very quickly, often having to balance between the strategic goal of the country, including supporting tourism, and the commercial and operational challenges which may from time to time arise. It is my very firm view that many of the challenges that face South African Airways really relate not only to the absence of requisite skills within the ExCo or to the challenges of the global economic recession, which would have impacted on passenger numbers and the ability of passengers to afford plane tickets. That faces all other airlines. So at SAA, we have no excuse in that regard. We can't say that there is something that is peculiar with SAA that doesn't face other airlines. Yes, all other airlines have faced difficulties, but there are far deeper challenges that we are facing at the airline that we need to address. And some of those are just quick win decisions where we need to deal with revenue management. We need to ensure that our IT systems enable us to exercise far greater control and management of internal governance processes and business and commercial processes But we also need to deal with a whole range of decisions, which include the route networks, which include the strategic use of our metal, which include ensuring that we rationalize the incentive schemes, particularly of our pilots. It remains a daunting challenge, one of the most vexing challenges that we have, that the incentive structure of our pilots in particular costs the company enormously when you compare with other airlines of similar size in other countries. And we need to address the questions of the productivity of our pilots in comparison with the pilots of other airlines of comparative size. So we have to deal with the leadership, the strategy, the board, when they present, they will indicate some of the steps that are being taken with regard to the strategy, what is now regarded as the DSB, SDP, stabilize, defense, and build. But our main focus for this presentation is to outline the steps that we are taking to address the cash flow and liquidity challenges that the airline faces. Those are issues of the greatest interest to the shareholder, which we have instructed the board to deal with as a matter of urgency. Because we don't need to do something that is what could I say? We don't need to do something that is so huge in order to address the liquidity challenges. There are quick wins. There are strategic decisions that the shareholder is also taking, which we will announce at the MTBPS to assist the airline to address these liquidity challenges. And there are matters of the medium and long-term nature that the board has been directed to take and that they have reported to me to be taking. So what we will be presenting here will look at the financial challenges and the different interventions that are being taken in order to address that. We will look at the structural issues which deal with particularly governance of the airline. We will deal with the turnaround strategy, though not in great detail because we have reported about those issues before. So members of the committee are quite aware of the challenges faced in that regard. And part of the liquidity challenges will address some of the initiatives that the board through the CFO are taking in order to deal with the cash flows, the savings, and other matters. We will report on the progress with regard to the repatriation of the SAA funds, particularly from Angola, because we have been engaging with the Angolans and there has been progress in that regard. We will then briefly take the committee, brief the committee on some of the investigations which have been undertaken by Edward Nathan Sonnenberg's ENS, Injebo Consulting, and Ernst & Young at SAA. Now, it is important to highlight that those reports are thus far not finalized because there are governance processes which are being followed, which include receiving management responses. And once that has happened, the board will indicate by what date are they going to finalize the reports so that we are able to receive finalized reports and deal with the remedial action proposed in those reports, because they raise quite serious issues that need an urgent response from us. We have had engagements with CPERI on a number of issues, including financial implementation issues. CPERI has proposed that we need to implement the turnaround strategy aggressively. And that aggressive implementation of the turnaround strategy will obviously have to be led by the CEO, the ExCo, together with the board, with the support of the shareholder. And in so doing, we expect that we will begin to see results. I am quite confident, I must say, that all of these issues that we have to do with regard to SAA indicate that had we done, these again are not matters that really ought to have taken this long to implement. They are not matters that would have required an MBA or PhD type of research. These are issues, many of which are quite self-evident. It is an indictment that they may have taken a bit of time for us to even be aware of them and to start implementing them. But the directive is that these matters must be implemented. There must be an aggressive implementation plan of the turnaround strategy. And the report by the board is going to address itself to some of those steps and particularly focusing on the financial aspects. I must indicate, Chairperson, that a great deal of the issues arising from the reports and other matters are market-sensitive issues. And I want to plead that they be discussed with that view. There is no intention on our part to hide anything from the committee, but some of the issues are very market sensitive, and if they land in the hands of the competitors of SAA, they will greatly compromise SAA's commercial and operational responsibilities. Having said all of that, Chair, I would admit that the airline is facing urgent financial challenges of a short to medium term nature, but we are confident that if we implemented some of the interventions that we intend implementing, we will make progress. For example, the Angolans have already started paying us $4.5 million of the $60 million that they owe us, and we have an agreement with them that they are going to pay on a monthly basis over the next few months. So we are positive that we are going to get that money. It will assist us to strengthen the cash balance in the airline. But that's not the only intervention. There are others, including revenue collection, revenue management in general, and how we manage some of the stock and equipment that we have in the airline. So without being tempted to drill down into the report, I will then hand over to the chair. The board is here. We have the Director General on my right, who will also assist to the extent that we can. We have DDG Anthony Julis over there. We've got Ravesh, who is our SAA aviation specialist. but the board is led by the chairperson. The deputy chair is the deputy chair is sitting right next to her. We have other members of the board. The acting CEO is also present. The brand new CFO is here also. I guess everybody else, including Sam, Chair. Thanks.
Members, can I suggest that instead of taking questions now, that we look at what the board's offering concretely in terms of its shareholder compact, its turnaround strategy, its 5-year corporate plan, because the ministers provided the overview framework within which the board is going to exchange further. It'll be more like precise. Is that okay? Yeah, because also I think flights and so on a Friday are quite challenging. So people will have to finish by 13:00 if possible. Over then to you, Chairperson, and welcome, and to your board and to the management.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister and the leadership from the department and the honorable members of this committee, leadership from the South African Airways and the board next to me. Chairperson, the Minister has given a very clear overview, and indeed we concur with everything that the Minister is saying. But also I think this committee might be keen to know that while I have the deputy chairperson next to me, I have the chairperson of the turnaround strategy behind us, Swazi Shabalala, and she's leading as the chair of the board committee, because we needed to support the executives in terms of the review of the turnaround as well as the monitoring of the implementation, because that's more important that the LTTS is being implemented. Without any further waste of time, Honorable Chair, may I then hand over to the CEO, acting CEO, to give us the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Honorable Minister and members. What I'm going to try and do today, Chairperson, I will not be taking you through all the slides. There are 5 key messages that I would like to leave this committee with at the end of my presentation. Indeed, we as SAA are facing liquidity constraints. However, the board has reacted to this. Board and management have been working together over the past 8 months. The idea was to try and come up with something that will take us to financial stability. The minister has highlighted a number of issues economically that are affecting us, and I do agree with the minister that it is not only affecting SAA, it's affecting other airlines as well. However, what is important for us is how do we respond to these market conditions, to the challenges within the company, and also in order to ensure that we bring the airline to stability. I think we will go straight to the strategic focus areas, because that is really the key message that I would like to leave this committee with. In us developing our strategy, it's based on the SDP model, which is you stabilize, you defend, and you build. I think in the situations that we find ourselves in today as the airline, it is very important for us to be focusing mainly on stabilizing the airline, in ensuring that we address key liquidity issues, we address key balance sheet issues, and then we defend our catchment area. I think in this, we want to make sure that we do not allow for what the market is doing to take the airline down. We need to respond in terms of how we defend. And then we can then build from that point. So when we look at areas of stabilizing the airline, obviously what we have done, we've come up with the 5-year turnaround strategy. We have also looked at issues that are affecting our cash burn, and we have responded to that. and that will be highlighted a bit later. Management has been appointed, and the minister has announced on the CEO, the CRO, and the process of the appointment of the CCO, the Chief Commercial Officer, is in line. But I think we need to also mention that in terms of governance, we are working quite hard as management and the board to ensure that our governance structures do work, addressing areas of supply chain management and addressing the shortcomings. And we are working together with the AG currently. They're highlighting some of the issues, and those issues are currently being addressed by management in ensuring that we are then able to stabilize the organization. But then on the defense side, we are talking mostly there about rationalizing and strengthening our route network. I think it's important, and I will mention later, what we are doing to ensure that we defend we rationalize our route network. But key to this also is to address the areas of revenue management. There is a number of activities that we have been embarking on in addressing revenue management, addressing areas of revenue leakage, also addressing areas of pricing, because in the past you did not have, or right now we do not have the skills in the area of pricing, but we've been strengthening that area and ensuring that we're getting people who would help us with that. Defending our market share, deepening our capabilities is another area that we are looking at. I think when you look at this model, it is helping in terms of guiding us on what key areas we need to focus on. So I will in looking at the next slide, we look at the key strategic outcomes. We discussed this at the last committee sitting, where we address issues of liquidity, balance sheet, revenue enhancement, and cost management. Now, to open up areas of liquidity, if I go to the next slide, we have initiated a number of revenues, of initiatives, which include in them recapitalization, cash management, and we have been looking at our cash conservation office, which so far has contributed. In the coming slide, it will tell you what we've been able to save in that area. We have prevented 35 million rands of cash burn, and we are continuing with us reviewing and looking at that. The cash capital, the cash injection we have spoken about, but there are other existing debt maturities that we are talking about. Sorry, Chair, just want to, I can't see clearly there. Okay, sorry, I couldn't see, Chairperson. So we have debt that is maturing in 30th of September. We are currently in negotiations with the lenders, and the CFO will say more about that when she gives her presentation. I am not going to talk more about revenue enhancement, save to say that our target in this area over the next couple of months is to save the 13.65 over the time of the plan. And then on our cost optimization, we are looking at 10.14 over the 5-year plan. There are many steps that we are looking at there. However, what I would like to address, Chairperson, are the key things that we are doing right now to address the cash burn. And those things are 5. We have decided on 5 key issues as executives that we are going to be embarking on to address the cash burn. One is route rationalization, which will save 900 million per annum, and that is starting right now. There are a number of routes that we will be looking at cancelling and pulling out of, and we are expecting a saving of 900 million. In terms of cost optimization, we are embarking on saving about 520 million at the end of 2017-18 by looking at a number of issues that are geared towards saving cost optimization. This looks at fuel management. It looks at not filling positions where we don't have, and we have started doing that. Another one in terms of the 5-year plan that we are involved in is fleet retiring of the 5 wide-body aircraft, and that has started. We are starting with 2. I think it's August, November, and then we will be. It's August, September, and then we will be looking at the 3 more later on. We are also doing a down gauging of aircraft flying from Cape Town to Joburg. This will help us prevent fuel spending money on maintenance and fuel, and that has also started in earnest, and we are looking at a saving of more than 10 million on that issue. The implementation of appointment of management in the executive structures, as we know, has started. Yesterday, there was the announcement of the CEO. The CRO has also been appointed, awaiting him signing on, and he will help us with the implementation of the turnaround strategy. The increases on management will not be affected going forward, especially this next financial year, and that would give us a saving going forward. And the EXCO has decided on Friday to take a 5% salary cut, and that would be effective from September of this year. I think the EXCO taking a salary cut is really an issue of symbolically. We are aware that the airline is facing problems, and we are saying that as EXCO we are responding to that. So in conclusion, Chairperson, we are aware of the problems. We are reacting to the problems that we have highlighted, and the strategy and its delivery is key to us as executives, and we will be in support of the new CEO when he comes to ensure that we deliver on the plan as it is, Chairperson. So I didn't cover for all the slides because we've circulated them, but we will take questions on them. I just covered the key 5 items that EXCO will be embarking on going forward. I'll hand over to the CFO to address the first quarter results.
The order of the agenda, because when you give us too much, then we don't engage.
Oh, sorry.
That's why we've broken up the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so the first item is what we're now focusing on your agenda. Questions, comments from members, please. We had indicated you won't be here this week. We pleased you back. Okay, with a full set of new teeth. Those who want to examine it can do so after 1 o'clock. Next is Mr. Lees, and then is Derek and Tikeledi and Pinky. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for welcoming back, and I'm thankful to the doctor. I know you will not believe me. I brought the medical certificate in case you give me trouble.
No, we can see the teeth, the new makeup.
Yeah, Chair, let me start with the good news. First, let me welcome what the minister has said, and also to appreciate the fact that he came to the committee himself. And one of the excitements is the fact that the suggestion we made as the committee for them to speak to the Angolans to give back the money is bearing fruit. It's one of the low-hanging fruits that we need to celebrate today. It's one step taking us forward. But secondly, also to appreciate the fact that the board is here, as we requested in the last meeting, to come and account to the committee. Unfortunately, I'm going to register my disappointment. It's unfortunate, Minister, and I'm hoping that because you are here, you will deal with these issues yourself and pay attention. You know, in the last meeting, let me brief you, in the last meeting, I celebrated the 5 points that were presented to us as the turnaround strategy. And I still remember them by heart. You know, I was the one singing them in the meeting. Liquidity, blah, blah, blah. And I said, based on that, we're going somewhere. But listening to the acting CEO, really, listening to you, sir, making a presentation today, that's where my disappointment comes from. Because I thought that based on those 5 pillars that we discussed in the last quarter, you were going to say in terms of achievements in the quarter, this is what we were able to achieve. And you see, don't underestimate the intelligence of members by giving us wrong information. You see, you say here today, you saved a cash burn of 35 million. You see, you can't say that. You can't. Because as we stand, you had to get cash injections not only to deal with the loans that were maturing, but you realize loss. And you should be frank and open and speak to us in relation to that. Don't present something that is not there. And I'll take you through so that I remind you of the things that we dealt with in the last meeting. And I'll start right at the end, Chair. You see, in relation to domestic revenue, the decline in the last quarter, you were actually realizing 86%. Okay? So at least you should be giving us a figure. I'm not saying you should realize A+, but you should be able to say to us today it has reduced from 86% to at least 65%. As an example. So that we can see that there's a slight improvement. And we said to you, deal with issues of your stock. And let me make an example. Last weekend, I'm going to use this anecdote, Chair, because it's very important. My kids were flying to Bloemfontein. The flight is delayed because of technical reasons. For the past 3 years, the flights between Bloemfontein on a daily basis, they are delayed because of technical challenges. 3 full years. I don't even fly to Bloemfontein anymore, I drive. Because I'm tired of being delayed all the time. You have not dealt with that. So we need you to tell us, leave alone the 2 that you're going to expunge.
Is that? It's an SA flight.
It's SA Express.
It's express.
Managed by them, Chair. Yeah. So, no. I'm very sure of that one because I know what was presented here the last time to us. I take details very serious. Come on, David, you get a chance. You see what you're doing. You see what David is doing, Chair, and you're not protecting me from David. You see?
Usually I have to protect others from you, so it's not a...
If you want me to take that route, I'm going to do it today, and I'm very good at doing it. Chair, in terms of route rationalization, I come from a thinking that we should be expanding, not actually going back. And I still need to be convinced. I still need to be convinced why do we give our routes to British Airways, reduce the space in our own country, I'm not convinced. And I gave an anecdote last year of a person who works for a different airline who says that we're not taking opportunities that South Africa should be taking. So I don't buy into that, that one, that if we want to follow this route of wanting to reduce our flight because we want, I made a suggestion that jet fuel can be sourced cheaper if we can change our strategies. What's the problem? It's not about reducing the routes. It's about the prices that you are paying for your jet fuel. If you have to source somewhere else, so be it. Why are the other people doing it right? Why can't SAA get it right? Why people are flying the same routes are profitable and we can't? I want us to really don't shy away on that one, on the issue of jet fuel, and we come to the bottom of it. In terms of the debt that is maturing in September, again, Chair, Minister, we're putting you on the spot again. I'm worried. I'm sorry about that. I'm worried that, again, Chair, we might find ourselves not being told whether when this debt matures in September, we'll be able to service it or not. The minister must not be caught on a back foot like he had to bail out the 2.2 billion rands because he was not told in advance that we will not be able to pay this debt. That's what happened in the last. And we tried to ask questions. Are you able to pay this debt? Okay? And I don't want us to do what the GA wanted us to do, to discuss what the investors that will be approaching in relation to where we source our funds from. We just want assurance that you'll be able to do it, because the presentation of facts as they are help us to understand whether there's improvements or not. So can you let the CFO, leave it CEO, let the CFO speak to this one, because she's the one who deals with the rents and cents. She'll be able to give us the figures as they stand, correctly as they are, because as you presented them, that's not the way they are. That's not how we captured them in the last discussions. Maybe it's because you were not here and she presented them, so we took note of the things that she said. And the intention is not to put you on the spot, but the intention is to help you out and for us to have a fair understanding that indeed there's improvements. Let's be honest about the challenges that are there and look at what we will be able to attain. And just give us one line of two things that we got right between now and then. And Minister, this aggressive turnaround, unfortunately, is going to put you in a place where you need to monitor them on a daily basis, you know. The niceties of presentations is not in the action that is taken. So in a way, you've got an extra homework to let the institution being run in a corporate manner for you to be able, and I'm sorry, if it comes to a point where you need to make changes of faces of people, to be able to get that aggressiveness, it will end up being the only option you have. Because there comes a point where you say, is this management able to pull what we need to do? Yes or no? And if not, then it needs to be changed. It's painful because we're dealing with warm bodies, but we want this institution to perform better. And that's our intention as the African National Congress. We want to give it the support. We don't want to just ask difficult questions. We made suggestions on how we believe we can attain this, and it's about corporate governance. It's about the smartness of the institution in terms of how it implements. Because for me, when my kids had to be redirected to Johannesburg, it was a loss on your behalf. Bad management in relation to that. And it's bad to make such an example because it's lack of professionalism to deal with things on the spot at the time, I think.
The range and number of questions that Tandi's asked, that she's covered the entire committee, right? So all of you now will have no time to ask any questions. Where's Advocate Jenkins? Can the chairperson rule that the number of questions are so comprehensive and so challenging that it'll take the SAA and the department 2 hours to reply, and then we'll all be rushing for our flights? Where's Advocate Jenkins? All right, think about that. In the meanwhile, who's next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased that I'm having the opportunity to build on the short message from Tandi behind me. Mr. Chairman, on a serious note, on the 27th of June, the day that SAA appeared before SCOF and where Ms. Mnyeni was the only SAA board member present, Ms. Mnyeni called me on my cell phone after the meeting to accuse me of spying on her because I was aware of her stay at the very expensive Beverly Hills Hotel in Mhlanga Rocks, as well as her choosing to fly by BA from Durban to Cape Town on the morning of the 27th. Ms. Mnyeni threatened me by informing me that her husband was considering to sue me, apparently for spying on her. Mr. Chairman, may I request that I get an apology from Ms. Mnyeni? Mr. Chairman, it was a blow to our confidence in the integrity of National Treasury when it was announced on the 1st of July that the Minister of Finance had invoked Section 16 of the PFMA to make an emergency payment of 2.207 billion to SAA to pay Standard Chartered. This was a blow because only 3 days before the payment was made, and when we questioned about the possible repayment of Standard Chartered bank loan, National Treasury seems to have failed to answer honestly and to inform the SCOF that there was no rollover agreement with Standard Chartered. SAA would have to be given cash to bail them out, and the Minister of Finance was considering, even if not yet decided, to invoke Section 16 of the PFMA. This would seem to be an unacceptable case of misrepresentation to Parliament, and in essence, treating MPs with a degree of disdain. We trust that this will not be the modus operandi of National Treasury as we move forward to ensure that the mismanagement of SAA and many other SOEs such as Eskom is rooted out before these organizations collapse or the taxpayer is forced to continue to bail them out. Mr. Chairman, the Minister this morning tells us that he will make some announcements in the MBPPS. Why not now? What are the announcements? Why not keep Parliament informed about what the proposals are? Mr. Chairman, the SAA corporate plan calls for a 13 billion rand recapitalization to meet working capital requirements, and which is a euphemism to say pay for ongoing losses. The cash flow indicates that right now SAA are short of 568 million rand. And I give credit to both the Minister and the acting CEO for acknowledging the liquidity crisis that exists. So right now, the July payments cannot be made. They're short of 568 million rand. There's no cash in the bank, and it appears no one is willing.
Mr. Lees, shouldn't those questions go under financials rather? We're dealing with overall strategy, turnaround, corporate plan, and so on. But you can raise those questions, they're very legitimate. It's just that, you see, the problem we have, you yourself have been complaining, that we have an overall input from the entity or department, then we ask 5,000 questions, then they reply to 20, and then we get the remainder. So I really think, in fact, I'm cheering. I'm not going to allow it. Let's focus on the issue. You can ask those questions later down. Let's focus on strategy, compact, corporate plan. But those questions can come up later.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move on then to the investigation reports. At the SCOF meeting on the 27th of June, there was once again a commitment from the Deputy Minister and National Treasury to ensure that the SCOF received copies of these reports.
What are you talking about now, sorry?
The investigation reports that I had requested from November last year, Mr. Chairman, and that you supported me at the last meeting.
Yeah, we agree with that. Where does it fall into the corporate plan, the turnaround strategy?
It's part of the corporate.
Part of the report. Okay, fine.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your indulgence on this one then. These reports were not forthcoming until I made a public demand, and I'm grateful to the Deputy Minister that he graciously met the deadline that I had unilaterally imposed. And I'm sorry he's not here for me to thank him for that. Sadly, whilst the deadline was met, only one of the 16 reports was provided. This report runs to some 2,000 or more pages and took over a week for the hard-working committee staff to make copies of and to distribute to members. The question is, why have copies of these reports, the balance of the reports, not been submitted to the committee? Are they all so sensitive that not even a portion of them can be delivered to us? I'm afraid I don't buy that, if that is the answer. Mr. Chairman, in terms of the report we did get, given that the report by EY was dated December 2015 and also reveals considerable mismanagement, including fuel supply contracts not optimally negotiated, as is suggested by Tandi behind me, the suppliers market was not always tested to obtain the best deal, contracts were not effectively monitored, and consequently there were instances where invoice charges were higher than the contract prices. The actual total spend on contracts exceeded the total contract price. Contracts were awarded on a quotation basis where there should have been a tender process. Tender processes, as I think has been acknowledged by the Minister and the CEO, were very slow, up to 2 years, and resulted in higher costs of procurement, done on a month-to-month basis. Savings actually negotiated with suppliers were not realized because contracts were not implemented. The combined buying power of SAA and its subsidiaries, primarily Mango, was not leveraged to obtain the better rates and prices. And then, for me as a bookkeeper, documentation retention was a concern, which to me is a no-no, absolute no-no. And not all of SAA contracts were investigated by EY, but they investigated 38 contracts and raised red flags on 12, 32% of those contracts, where they state, and I quote, "Matters of concern identified relating to the contract requiring your immediate and/or urgent attention. By not addressing these concerns, SAA and its subsidiaries may be exposed to financial loss or legal liability." Mr. Chairman, the question then is, this report is dated December 2015. Who has been held accountable? What action has been taken to fix the issues raised there? How many cases of fraud and corruption have been laid, if there are any? And who are the persons charged and what progress has been made? Mr. Chairman, given the clear mismanagement of SAA during the tenure of Ms. Mnyeni as board chair, and given the Minister's statements that Ms. Mnyeni's term as board chair comes to an end in August, can the Minister please inform us who will take over from Ms. Mnyeni as board chair at the end of August? Mr. Chairman, we've issued a statement, and we genuinely mean it. We welcome the appointment of Mr. Vuyani Jagana as the CEO of SAA.
It is the DA that is doing this thing, eh?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased that people are taking me seriously and trying to shut me down. Mr. Jagana has an impressive track record in business and should be well placed in order to turn SAA into a profitable operation. And we certainly wish him well, and we will give him all the support we can. However, Mr. Chairman, given the crisis at SAA, what are the details of the performance requirements that Mr. Vuyani has been given? And equally, what are the requirements that Mr. Vuyani has given to SAA and the Minister that he needs in order to be a success in this job? Mr. Chairman, we note with gratitude the voluntary 5% salary cut of ExCo. It's a token, but it is an indication of the understanding of the crisis at SAA, and that must be congratulated. However, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Jachana comes from Vodacom. He's in a very senior position there on a very huge salary. Can the Minister reassure us about what salary package, remuneration package, has been offered to Mr. Jachana to entice him to come and fix SAA? And I say again, we have great confidence that if he's given all the support and the freedom, that he can do the job. He seems to us to be the right person for the job. Mr. Chairman.
He gets 20 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I won't react to Thandi. I enjoy being heckled. Yes, absolutely. Mr. Chairman, I really enjoy the Minister, and I warned him earlier that I hope he had his flak jacket on because the bullets would be flying from this side. So I hope he hasn't got any wounds just yet. But Mr. Minister, you made no mention at all of private equity, either in full or in part as a possibility. And so I have to jump to the conclusion that it's now off the agenda. And Minister, you quite rightly say it should not have taken so long. In fact, it actually hasn't started really yet for remedial action to be done. If you're acknowledging that, who's being held accountable? Who's losing their job? It cannot be that the taxpayer has had to bail out SAA to the tune of billions, and we now say, well, it's taken too long, it should have started a long time ago, but there are no consequences for anyone. It cannot be like that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Derek, that's next, I think. I can't recall. Yeah.
Thanks, Chairperson. I won't be 20 minutes, I promise you. Let me also, well, if you want me to be, I could, I suppose. But let me firstly just echo what other people have said and welcoming the appointment of the CEO. This will be a big challenge. I think some questions have been asked in relation to it. But I think we can all be confident that this is a good appointment and be confident that this CEO will be able to implement a turnaround strategy and is highly competent to do so. But it will depend on the substance of the strategy itself. As the Minister said, the CEO can't do it on his own. He will need a solid backing from the board, good strategic direction, a good plan to implement, and a good team to help him implement the plan. But we welcome this appointment. A question here is, I mean, it's clear that the SAA as it stands is fraught with problems. It's not a going concern. It's been and is a burden on the fiscus, and it cannot continue to be so. So the turnaround strategy has to, amongst other things, ensure that the SAA will not continue to be a burden on the fiscus. 2 billion rand, Chairperson, would build 20,000 houses for the homeless. So, we use these figures lightly, but actually they're at the expense of something else. So it cannot continue to be. So if this is going to be turned around, are we confident that this turnaround strategy will help bring our national carrier to becoming a going concern, and if so, by when? The 3 billion recapitalization money, Chairperson, although it might come up in the next session, the next discussion, the big question really is, where exactly will this come from? And it would be useful if we know that there's a clear and concrete plan, given that this amount has been identified as a necessary amount for the recapitalization. Where will it come from? On the board itself, clearly we have had historical problems with the board, and the question to the minister is this board, as it stands today, and to the board members themselves, is it operating effectively as a team? We've read reports that the chairperson has been absent from a number of board meetings, and the question is the chairperson attending all board meetings? The board, it's clear, we know, the board doesn't run the company. It is there to give strategic direction, it is there to do oversight, but it should be the distinction between what a board does and what management does has to be very clear. As I said, it does not run the company, yet in the past, there has been a sort of a confusion of roles, and the chairperson has tended to overstep the roles and responsibilities of a chairperson of a board and been inclined to almost act as a CEO, which is not what a chairperson of a board should be doing. So although the chairperson will not be there for much longer, we need an assurance that this is no longer the case, that the board is doing what it needs to do, strategic direction, good oversight, but not trying to interfere in the operations of the company. We need that assurance. On the arising from the report, Chairperson, obviously the cuts in salary of 5% of the senior executives would be symbolically very important and should be very welcomed. However, in the presentation itself, it talks about no salary increases for management. Yet in your verbal presentation, you said a 5% cut. If we can just get clarity on that. And finally, Chairperson, the last question from the previous speaker. With all of these things that have been happening to SAA, that have cost our country heavily, cost our economy heavily, who is being held accountable? If we could get a clear answer on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me also welcome the team and appreciate the presence of the Minister. And I think, Minister, it's, I don't know if it was coincidental that you requested the meeting to be postponed to today so that you can give us the news that the CEO has just been appointed yesterday, and the meeting happened today. It's good news to us, and I think it's a good timing. It just happened to be a good timing for the meeting to happen today. We welcome the appointment. It's long overdue, and as a committee, we've been complaining about this. And the presence of the board members. Last time we were in this meeting, we were disappointed that only the chair was here and the team was not here. And today that the team is here with the chairperson, we welcome you and we appreciate that you responded. You did not leave everything to the chairperson. Hence, our concern was that all the time she's being accused. And some of you as team members in the corners outside there, you're complaining and sending wrong messages. And when you're supposed to come here in front of the committee, you are not available. We are happy you're here today. Whatever we're saying, whatever we're talking about, you'll be part of the discussion. Still on the same mode, Chairperson, of thanking the team. I also want to thank the team for availing documents. You know, this tendency and this behavior that one has been complaining about since 2014, that you get documents inside the meeting. You cannot engage well with those documents. And I'm happy that this time around, you were able to give us information, and we have been able to go through the documents in time. Chair, the same confusion that I think Honorable Liz is on, I was for a little bit. You look at the agenda, you look at 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 4 and 5, but you look at the presentation, the content. Hence, there will be some mistakes where we might overlap. Pardon us for that, because there's that confusion. Having said that, Chair, I want to speak to the pillars. I know Comrade Tandi have said a mouthful about that. On your presentation, it's on slide 5. The overarching message there is financial sustainability. And all other members who spoke before me, Honorable Liz and others, and I think the country at large, we've been having a concern about the bailing out of this institution over time. I don't know if I should ask this question, that do you believe that we will ever have or experience sustainability financially in this institution, ever? You know, correctly, Honorable Tobias asked the question, what are you saying in terms of these pillars, in terms of this strategy? How far are you? Because our responsibility, we have agreed and welcomed, we're happy about the strategy. Ours is do an oversight and monitor if there is an implementation according to this. The CEO, we are all happy. And we are convinced that with the credentials that the minister has said and that we hear from the media, he will bring some stability or good things, the outcomes to the institution. But I want to request, Chairperson, through you, to the institution and Treasury, that I think there should be an operational plan which will be informed by these pillars, that will speak to these pillars in terms of the minister spoke of the long-hanging fruits. Is it the minister or the acting CEO? Someone spoke of that. In terms of priority, the short-term, middle-term, and long-term plans. And I think if we have that operational plan to the CEO, it will be easier for us as the committee to monitor. What I liked about the presentation, because it's difficult, Mr. Zwani, you said you are summarizing. You did not speak to the slides. I understand that, but I'm saying at least we received the documents in time. Where you speak about the consequential management, that is very key. And that will help, because sometimes people do things because they know there will be no consequences. And once that is happening, I think Chairperson will help a lot in terms of making sure that these things that we read about, this misconduct, these decisions that are being taken and people doing as they wish, will not happen. And I'm happy that you're saying you are working with the AG. Remember, this is one of the things that we have raised earlier in 2015. Now that it's happening, Chairperson, I'm happy. Chair, on the transformation, as you implement a transformation, Chairperson and acting CEO, the team, I think we should not leave out, we spoke also on restructuring. There's a person dedicated for restructuring. We should not leave out the organized labor, because employees are going to be affected in any way. So in our implementation of the restructuring and also transforming, we need to make sure that we include employees through their unions as organized labor. Mr. Liz, I have a request on what you have said, the concern that you have raised about what happened between you and the chairperson, which happened outside the committee or the House. My request, Chairperson, is that I'm appealing that we should not discuss this matter. Maybe necessary steps needs to be taken outside to deal with it. Because I've always had a problem whereby instead of playing the ball, we are playing a man. And we should not, cloud our meeting whereby we are going to, derail our focus and focus on other issues. I understand your concerns, but I was saying, because these things happened outside, let them be dealt with accordingly outside and not be part of the discussion in the meeting.
Chair, just on a point of order. Chair, can I just, while we're on this, express my strong disagreement with that position? I've said it before and I'll say it again. Dudu Myeni is not a chairperson. She's a corporate warlord.
Chairperson,
phoning and threatening our member
Mr.
and a
Menya,
member of this committee.
You're doing what you are
Out
known
of order,
for.
Chairperson.
There's no
And Dudu
Mr. Manya, I'm not allowing you to
should
speak.
apologize
You are not
David
allowed to
Manya.
speak.
Mr.
Mr.
Elfleis
Manya,
and
David
to
Manya.
this
can you just
committee.
behave? You just
We
behave.
cannot have a situation
Chair.
where the chairperson
keep
of a
quiet, please.
board
Right. No,
calls
I'm ruling. Yeah,
and
I
threatens a member of parliament and a member of this committee.
I can't
And I
switch
would
the
ask
mic.
Chairperson, I hope you
Dudu
had the
Myeni
power to switch off his mic
to
because it's just out of order.
apologize.
Right. Now, can we calm down? Firstly, may I take this opportunity?
I was still on the floor,
No,
Chair.
I'm the chairperson. I'm telling you now. I'm
No,
not
Chair.
asking you to stop.
I-
Right. Firstly, I want to welcome the school, the learners who are here. Dikeledi, I'm chairing. Can you switch your mic off, Dikeledi, please? Right. I'm welcoming the learners who are here. This is your parliament. Welcome. What we are doing here is we're meeting with the Minister of Finance, Minister Malusi Gigaba, and his team from the department, South African Airways, which is state-owned. It's owned by yourselves, the government and the people, and ourselves as the Finance Committee. And we're asking them questions about their overall approach, how are they doing financially, and so on. That is it. Now, the Parliament is very robust, meaning people speak a lot, and we have our little tiffs and so on. But this is the way Parliament functions. That's part of a democracy. Now, on this matter, it's a very simple thing. Dikeledi has every right. Firstly, Mr. Lees, you are right to raise it here. I wish you had raised it with me outside the meeting. I did not know about this matter, and I think it's indecorous, if I may use that word. Maybe it's too strong a word. I would say it wasn't appropriate in my view, as a subjective chairperson. It's not appropriate for you to have raised it without at least letting me know. If that indeed did happen, then if it did happen, it is completely out of order, and it's not the first time necessarily, let me remind members. And that is not something that Dikeledi or David or I am going to decide. That is the rules of Parliament, and Advocate Jenkins is going to decide. But since the matter has been raised here, Advocate Jenkins, it may be appropriate that Ms. Myeni, because it's now in the public domain, the media has been given a chance to reply. I'll ask for your guidance. It is not the subjective wish of Dikeledi, or the subjective wish of David Mania, or the subjective wishes of the chairperson. The rules will decide and the norms will decide. So I'll come back to you on that matter when all questions have been asked. You will get your chance to actually pose a question. There's no point of order. The order that I noticed was the following. All of you will get a chance to speak. Next is Pinky, then it's Floyd after Dikeledi, it's finished. Then it's Pinky, then it's Floyd, then it's David, and then it's Marsh Sitole Shope. Right.
Chairperson, it's not correct what David is doing. And
Dikeledi, focus on the issues now.
Oh,
I've chaired
no.
and ruled on the matter. Now, if you're not happy with it, can we move to the next speaker? I have to operate by the rules, Dikeledi, you're not above them.
no,
I've
Chairperson,
already expressed my... At the same time, I'm bound by the rules and norms, and Advocate Jenkins will guide us on that. Can you continue on other matters? Thank you.
no, Chairperson, I know you're the chairperson and you have all the powers to rule. and I always respect that. But I must not be suppressed to raise my concern as a member of this committee. I raise questions, and people are given an opportunity to speak on matters. And whoever wants to challenge or disagree with me must wait his or her time to do that. I can't allow David to do what he's doing over and
Agreed.
again.
Agreed.
He can't intimidate
Yeah,
me,
you
and he
can't
must stop
intimidate. You're
doing
right.
this.
We agree. I agree with you. I've ruled he's out of order,
No.
and he has to accept that. All right, carry on, Dikeledi. Okay, you finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Chair. I think I want to agree with Comrade Dikeledi that private conversations must be private conversations. If members decide to engage outside the activities of Parliament, let them do that, and we can't be drawn into those things. So, as far
On
as
that already, can you go on to the next issue, please? I've ruled on that already.
Chair, I think let me welcome the presentation of the minister and what the SAA has just presented. But I think, Minister, I want you to understand where we come from as this committee. And to us, you know, the slow pace that some of these things have been going on disturbs us a bit. I mean, this board, it's about, it will be turning 1 year on the 2nd of September, if I'm not wrong. And I think even yourself, when you get appointed as a minister, you have 100 days kind of activities and targets that you work on. There are quite a number of things that are really, of course, you have said it in your framework, but I don't think some of these things really, unless if it's not work as usual, people put more effort on some of their things. I move from the premise of Comrade Thandi to say, we have heard some of these things and we want action, we want implementation. And we know board members, and we really appreciate the work that people agree to serve in our boards. And if people feel they are overburdened, they must be able to say it, and so that you are also allowed as a minister to add on where people are unable to deal with some of their things. I mean, even the fact that in the last meeting, most of them could not pitch after we had postponed from our side, it was a cause for concern. I think, Minister, and I think this is one of the things that has been a thorn on my flesh, the route network issue as part of your turnaround strategy. And I always say this as an example, that if SAA flies to Heathrow, they fly there and their Boeing stands there until they come back. Come here, they do this, they fly from Joburg to Durban to all these routes, and they take our routes. And I'm giving that as an example, as a patriotic South African. You have to sit as the Minister of Finance with the Minister of Transport and start to say, let us review some of this. That's what radical transformation also speaks to. Because until we start to look at all those routes and say, and those routes are very sustainable routes that can even assist our national career to improve its work. These guys are eating up on all these things. Go and review all these licenses that are being given to all these other airlines. We can't be apologetic on some of those things and watch our airline going down the drain. It can't happen. There are quite a number of things, including, I mean, if you look at most of these national carriers, they even own the airports. Why is it different from us not to own our own airports as SAA? So these are some of the things that are difficult, but we now have to put them on the table and start to say, can't we do these things differently? So I think as you stabilize, as you defend and build, part of the things that you should look at is the route and how strategic some of those things are. I'm worried about the outstanding investigations and all other things because money has been incurred. Why are we not being given those reports so that we are able to? Some of them are not even having to deal with market-sensitive issues. I mean, it has been there in the public that our pilots are getting more incentives. It's unaffordable. How can we turn those things around? And there's still disparities even around those. It's not all pilots who receive some of those things. And why is it still this way? Why can't we look at all those things and start to act? And act now. Huh? It is public knowledge that somewhere you are paying for offices that the routes are not even there. Does it have to do with market sensitivity? I mean, if people bogusly create some of these things wrongly and so on, and we are slow in acting and saving costs and acting along those lines. I mean, we have to do some of those things and act accordingly. So I'm worried. I'm really worried, and in fact, this engagement continues to depress me because I don't see the sense of us moving swiftly. You know, I was part of the last meeting where we were assured that it will be just swift in terms of dealing with the challenges of the financial situation. And the next thing, it was a rush, one last-minute rush for you to deal with some of those things. So we want you to really be honest and then be able to deal with some of these things accordingly. September is coming. I'm not sure. And the way I see things, we just hope in that mood of you being so relaxed, it means things will be moving in a proper way. But Mina, Minister, if truth be told, I agree with Thandi and them to say, if there are people who feel they can't serve, they have other engagements that they are dealing, let's thank them and make them to leave as board members and then get new people who can be able to deal with this thing, because we don't have the time and pleasure to deal with it. It has never happened that crew members, that all these things, from time to time it's SAA this and so on and so on. And we want stability, the stability that you guys are talking to. Thank you.
Floyd.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. So in terms of the powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, it is not permissible for any South African citizen to intimidate a member of Parliament as a result of what they said in a committee of Parliament. So it's inappropriate of a chairperson of a board of a state-owned company to call any member of Parliament to want to make follow-up or raise intimidations or issues on issues that occurred in Parliament. So it will be inappropriate for Ms. Dudumiene to call any member of Parliament, whether they are members of the ANC or DA or the EFF, about issues that arose here in Parliament. I think that perhaps that what should be done is that the member concerned should make follow-up in terms of that piece of legislation, because that prohibited act can be prosecuted upon if you take that to relevant authorities. I think that is one of the things that has to be dealt with as a matter of agency, because delinquency should not be accepted, must not be permitted, particularly when it relates to members of parliament. Members of parliament must never ever be intimidated. We have got the freedom of expression that is guaranteed and protected by the Constitution, so that we're able to hold the executive accountable in an open and fearless space. So that is one. And the second issue is that in July 2015, when there were problems in ESCOM, the National Treasury, I think that time the minister was Minister Ntantlanen, came to request that we should allow government to dispose of its stake in Vodacom. Sold its stake from Vodacom, I think it was about 13.9%, to the PIC for about almost 30 billion rand in order to bail out ESCOM. And that money we later on appropriated. We even passed special legislation to try to rescue ESCOM from the crisis that it was confronting then. But despite throwing the money into ESCOM, we have not been able to rescue it from the crisis that it had entered into. The corruption continued in ESCOM, the maladministration. It is reflected in the current financials, where there is more than 3 billion rands in irregular expenditure in ESCOM. So we just threw money because there was a crisis there in terms of what had happened. And I saw elsewhere that there are speculations that the minister is considering disposal of some of the strategic assets which the state owns in order to bail out SAA. Well, we know that there's not been an official communication about that, but I would think that as a committee we should advise that National Treasury should not dispose of any state assets in order to bail out SAA. They are far much more sophisticated and complex problems that I will explain what has to be done to resolve them at SAA. It's not even a long solution. And more so Telkom. So Telkom must not be sold, Minister. The state owns about 40% of Telkom. And despite its non-majority stake in Telkom, state received in the current financials about 2 billion rands in dividends from Telkom, and above 1.1 billion rands in taxes from Telkom. And that excludes the personal income taxes of the 19,000 employees of Telkom. So you have a state-owned, like partially, company called Telkom that is adding value into the fiscal. So you can't dispose it in order to put a bandage on the wounds that are on SAA. It will not be wise to take such a decision. It will not benefit our country now and in the long run. So I think that is one thing that we should advise, should not be engaged on in the process of rescuing SAA. The second last issue I want to deal with is on the 2nd of September last year, the presidency issued a statement. It's still there, that indicated, which announced the appointment of the new boards, the new board of SAA, which announced the inclusions of the board members, Ramano, Chiseve, Maluleke, and all of them. But that statement also said that Ms. Dumieni is going to be reappointed for a period of 1 year. That was in September 2016. So I wanted to check as to, are we going to see Ms. Dumieni leave the SAA on the 2nd of September? Is a term coming to an end? Because that is what was publicly communicated. And I hope that that should be the case. So Ms. Dumieni must finish a term and then hand over to whoever government will appoint to then take the institution forward. And I think that lies at the center of stabilization of the South African Airways, that we need new leadership. Let's allow the new CEO, Vuyani, Jahana, to stabilize the entity. I heard Honorable Tobias was suggesting that the minister must babysit SAA. I don't think so. If you have got a new CEO, and if Dudumieni leaves the SAA on the 2nd of September, and then you allow for a stable environment, I think we can then allow them to then present their own financial sustainability mechanism and system. A new CEO is coming to office. I don't think that we must expect that he's going to automatically inherit what the failed management has been trying to do. Because Tandi is correct that the goalposts have been shifted from one meeting to another. So today is this plan, tomorrow is this. Every appearance of a committee, there is a new strategy that is being proposed then. So let us allow the new CEO to then draft, of course, in consultation with National Treasury, a recovery plan, and then would then interrogate it, and then would then be able to support it, possibly with a board that will be much more reinvigorated to focus in terms of what has to happen at SAA. I think the crisis of SAA has been a crisis of leadership, mostly centered around its chairperson, who intimidates members of parliament, and management, which was not capable enough. And I think that let's allow the new leadership to take the airways forward in a much more. And then I think that the one issue that we might want to advise is that there are these genuine concerns that are raised by the cabin crew members at SAA, that perhaps the new CEO should, as amongst of the immediate task, listen to their concerns in terms of what they've been raising for a very long time. And all workers, of course, must be listened to so that you have got an inspired workforce of the airline, and then we stabilize it to permanent stability. Thank you.
Mr. Mania is gone, so the last questions from Sitole Shope.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you, Minister, for being available in this committee, especially with the announcement of the new CEO. I think this is a step in the right direction. You know, since I came to the National Assembly in 2009, I have fallen in love with reading thoroughly the reports of the Auditor General every year. And there were three things that were consistent. One, the Auditor General complained about leadership. Two, consequence management. And three, compliance with legislation. Those are the three. And I love to research because I'm in appropriation. I love to research on each and every issue that comes my way. The question of SAA, I realized that it was put under Treasury in 2014. And most of the wrong things that were happening, I think they were happening because there was no leadership in Treasury, not in the SAA. That is my conviction. Somebody else has to convince me otherwise. It does not help us as a country to keep on camouflaging that we've got an ailing SAA, wara wara. It's not that. And as long as we talk about untruths, we will never solve this problem. To me, SAA is the most resilient institution that I've ever. I started being a bookkeeper in 1975, and I've done a lot of looking at reports of in the private sector and now. But you know, an institution that could resist people who want to privatize it, nobody will actually convince me otherwise. I'm actually writing a book, Chairperson, on that issue. The desire to privatize state-owned entities. That is where we are. In February, our committee undertook a trip, a study tour to Germany and Sweden. We sat with our counterparts there, we discussed issues. And Germany warned us that, you see, privatization is the way that you must never go. We went on that and we are regretting and we are reversing. I just want you, Minister, to remember that at all times. But it pleased me because I can hear from your speeches that I think you don't like to privatize it. And that is what gives me some comfort. But Treasury, not SAA or any other, if we don't remove the rot in Treasury, there is no excuse why we should have similar mistakes in SAA as we have in the integrated financial management. I've read all those. And they're similar, it's the same pattern. And to me, it is the rot in Treasury. And up until you actually be frank and honest enough to say, these people have wronged, we have forgiven them, or we are punishing them, or we are removing them, we're wasting Parliament's time by coming to this committee. You're bringing wrong culprits. These are not the culprits. SAA is working, and it was making profit. I love SAA. I've been in Parliament since 1994, and I've traveled the whole world, and I can tell you that SAA is the best. Is the best. I've changed many flights, you know, but SAA, please, whatever you do, never ever put your mind in actually privatizing SAA. You will hurt us. Thank you.
Firstly, Minister, can I say that I welcome, and I hope members do, the candor with which you've spoken. I really think you're right. Many of the things, interestingly, you're new here, obviously, right? So, you know, what surprises me, and Sam is new, so he wouldn't have briefed you on what's been going on in this committee, right? But much of what you say is what we've been saying, at least the majority of us, and certainly the majority party. Actually, may I start by saying this? We have our differences as political parties in this committee. But the one thing that the gap between us as parties is very narrow on is SAA. Now, there's across political parties, there's a large degree of consensus about the situation of SAA. I think the areas where we differ are around the last issue raised by Ma Sitole Shope, that the ANC doesn't believe that the answer resides in privatization. What we have said as a committee and as a study group some 18 months ago, to remind members, is that equity injection is fine, you know, a minority partner, but it should remain a state-owned company. But it's reinforcing your view that, look, it is no rocket science to use your terms here. You're absolutely right. There's some very basic things. We're not technical experts, Minister, nor are you. But there are very simple things that can be done. And you rightly, for the first time we hear it, the committee's been saying this, that all other airlines are also experiencing the same challenges. And there are airlines that actually are less resourced than ours is, and they're performing reasonably in the circumstances. So I think it's the first time I've heard a minister or a deputy minister since 2014 when SAA came to us speak so frankly. And I really want to welcome it. And to say also that if you look at the records, you're saying exactly what we're saying. So I really am impressed, Minister, at your initial input, in particular in regard to that. Secondly, just to alert you as a minister and the new board members, I think what seems to me to be the case is a healthy skepticism. In other words, members have been through this. All I can say subjectively is I've been chairing committees since '98, and I chaired public enterprise for 2.5 years, at which time SA was falling within that portfolio. I've dealt with 5 committees. I think there's a 4th or 5th committee I'm chairing. We've dealt with state entities and state-owned companies. Never before have I come across a state-owned company that just is so flat. There's no significant advance between the first time we met SA in this committee, after having spoken to the public enterprise, and now. So, you know, my own view is that there is a marginal improvement in the coherence of the strategy given to us now and that corporate plan. But I think what members are saying, certainly what I'm saying, is that these are just words at the moment. As Pinky said, we want to see action. As Thandi said, what's new? Thandi also raises a very interesting point which struck me as a committee. What has changed between the last time, that's the point Thandi is asking, what has changed, Thandi asks rightly, between the last time you were here and now? In fact, one might ask a further question. What has changed since early 2015 until now? Very little. Words on a slide. So, Minister, we understand you're new. You were a Minister of Public Enterprises. But when you're a minister, you look at things, ask Derek, from a different point of view. Derek's, I think, experiencing a small culture shock here. You know, he's never been, he was in the backbenches for a while, it's true. But anyway, I'm teasing Derek. But the point is that from the side of committee, members of parliament, if you were sitting here as a chair, you would probably say similar things as I am, and know that if I was sitting in your place, I would say the same. It's a different vantage point. So in other words, Minister, we are skeptical. We're not cynical, and it's a healthy skepticism because of what we've been through. So it's really what happens in practice that will tell. And to remind members, we are meeting with SA, I think on the 13th of September again, Tabo. So we're meeting you shortly, 6 weeks from now. So some of the questions we're asking will carry over. So can Zakele and Antonio help us in that regard? Then very quickly, I'm not going to cover all the points I want to make. I think, as with others, I want to welcome the appointment of the new CEO. I trust he knows what he's letting himself in for, Minister. But I think we wish him well. But as others have said, one person alone won't deal with the issue. And I think really it depends on the team. And I agree with Pinky and Thandi and others that actually need to buttress the team. You can bring in the CEO of what, Arab Emirates, are they the best? Well, one of the best, I think, airlines is Emirates Airways. You can bring the CEO in, what? What will he be able to do, or she be able to do? So the team has to be buttressed. And when it comes to the board, we need to remind you, Minister, we checked, we can't prescribe, obviously, to you. But we raised it with Minister Gordhan that we would like to see the appointment of at least 1 or 2 people with aviation expertise. And if I'm correct, I saw in the public domain you yourself saying that. Or was it the DG? I can't recall. But one of the senior people in Treasury, or you said it, Minister, we want to plead. We're not saying that everybody who's on the board has to have aviation expertise. That'll be wrong too. But at least 1 or 2. And you've got spaces that we plead again. We've written to Minister Gordhan, and that letter is on the files there. You'll find it. So we're pleading in regard to that. On the issue of I think I'll drop a lot of these questions. The question about selling state assets. Are there assets the SAA has got which are non-core, which can be disposed of? And if so, shouldn't that be a consideration? I'll come to this question later on the financials, but I think that the general thrust of what members are saying is that, you know, the candor that you have shown your minister is not what we got the last time. There were questions put to this SAA. Instead of, you see, you can't, we agree, Minister, we're not naive, right? Market sensitivities are relevant. We can't just ask any and every question, and there's a way out. We can close the meeting, Minister. If we really wanted answers to questions, we've checked. We can close the meeting and ask questions that impinge on market sensitivities. So we will protect the state-owned entity, whichever party we're from. But that can't be used as an excuse not to answer simple and basic questions. And some of the things said to us last time, I don't know, border on actually lying to Parliament. It borders on, I'm not saying it did. And we're warning anybody, whoever they might be, to lie to Parliament is something that's a serious offense, right? But really, the answers given to us do not bear a correlation with the current financials that I've seen and that we'll be discussing in a moment and others have seen. So I'll leave it at that, except to say that I think overall, speaking for myself and probably the majority of this committee, oh yes, we also agree with Masitole Shope as the Finance Portfolio Committee and Study Group. We haven't had a study group for this meeting, but there's a consistent pattern, Masitole, and you've not been part of it. Our view is slightly different from hers, but she has the right to have that view. It is that we feel that Treasury needs to exercise far more effective oversight over SAA without intruding unduly in terms of corporate governance norms and regulations and so on. That you can do far more than you're currently doing, Minister. And just to echo the point Masutole is saying, we've discussed this before when I chaired Public Enterprises Minister, and I think you'll know it from your own stint as a minister there, that actually the ultimate authority that answers to Parliament is actually the executive authority. It's the minister and the DG. And then it's the board chair and the CEO. So we feel, as we've said, Masutole, just to remind you, our committee has said this before, that we feel that Treasury is not doing enough to exercise effective oversight. And it can be done without intruding or interfering in the operational and other autonomy that's appropriate to a state-owned entity. Then the point that people are making, Thandi and others, I think we should stress. You can bring a CEO in, however good he or she is, but the other considerations, the board must just abide by corporate governance. Previously, it's correct to say that board chairs and or board officials have been, actually, this committee has raised it, has been interfering in the functioning of the management, and we want that to stop. It's not acceptable. So on that, we ask you, because yours is a daily monitoring or weekly monitoring of SAA, ours is a quarterly monitoring. So in short, we're encouraged, well, at least I'm encouraged a bit by the greater coherence. But the real test is what happens henceforth. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and to honorable members. I think I will start because I think a lot of questions actually are directed at me, and then the board and the management will come in on other items. The DG is also...
Something that's relevant. Sorry, I apologize for this. On the matter of Mrs. Miyeni, I would plead with members that we don't rewrite the rules. We don't have a mandate, as there's no such thing as a finance study group approach to the rules or a home affairs approach to the rules. I've said this before. I have no choice as a chair that we abide by the norms and rules. And Mr. Floyd has mentioned the Privileges and Immunities Act. That is a law passed by this Parliament and the majority. Now, at the end, not to distract from the issues, at the end of the meeting, at least by 20 to 1 or so, I will ask you, Advocate Jenkins, to help us in that regard. But the matter has been aired here, and the person may have a very different take from what Mr. Lees has said on the exchange that they had. But the matter, if it's relevant to the committee, in other words, there is no problem if two people, a member of parliament from whichever committee and a state-owned entity have an argument somewhere in the passageway or so on, we can try to settle it outside. But if it flows from something that has been said in the committee, it is a committee matter. However, I don't want us to distract, as Dikeledi rightly says, from this issue, so I'm suggesting we look at it towards the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we are grateful for the overwhelming committee support for the new CEO. And as I spoke to him yesterday, I indicated to him that he need not be naive about the enormity of the responsibility he has accepted. He applied for the job. We didn't have to entice him. So he understood very well what is the nature of the beast. And he sent me, at the end of our conversation, one very poignant statement saying, "Minister, I am committed." I will take him at his word. So I must say that the negotiation of the employment contract is not my responsibility in terms of governance. It's the responsibility of the board. I will, however, meet with him to discuss my expectations on behalf of the shareholder with regard to what we expect him to do, and to hear from him what he would like us to do in order to provide him support. I have indicated to him that he has my wholehearted support, and we are going to do everything to ensure he succeeds in this responsibility. It is a difficult responsibility because it is much in the public glare, and there's a lot of social and political pressure on that role, not out of his own making, but I think because of the legacy into which he steps, and I think he needs to manage that so that we take focus on SAA away from political pressure into the corporate environment where it belongs. The issues of raised by Honorable Thandi with regard to SA Express, it unfortunately has an independent board. We will deal with that. I think the program to consolidate our aviation assets needs to be expedited so that we can rationalize on the routes the strategic deployment of the metal as well as optimize on how we service the passengers on the different routes. The rationalization of the routes it's quite a tricky area, because commercially a route may be unprofitable. Strategically, you may need it. So there is that need to balance. I think at the present moment, even some of the routes out of which SAA is coming at the present moment, they may, when the finances allow in the future, decide to take those routes on and return those flights on those routes. But I think at the present moment, when you are faced with liquidity challenges of the nature SAA faces, Chair, you don't behave as if it's business as usual. You take hard decisions, you tighten the belt, you cause a lot of pain on yourself and on some of your stakeholders until you have stabilized, you have defended. And when you start building, you then make those decisions. And that's why, among others, we're saying to the board, we need to speed up decision-making on the routes, because the delays on some of those issues actually means delays on taking ourselves out of the Johannesburg-Abuja route means we're losing millions of rand every month operating that route. So we must take a decision very quickly to save that money as well as on other routes. The board will respond to issues of jet fuel. What will happen in September? We are in negotiations with the lenders about what happens beyond September. We are grateful that they agreed to extend the date of maturing of their debts from end of July to September with a very clear commitment on their part on SAA in particular and South Africa in general. So we are in discussions about what will happen. I think we will do everything in our power to ensure that the difficulties we faced at the beginning of July, when Standard Chartered had to move out, are not repeated. I agree, Honorable Comrade Thandi, that the aggressive implementation plan proposed surely places the minister as the shareholder representative at the center, not of the operation, but of exercising oversight as the chairperson, greater oversight as the chairperson is suggesting. I have spoken with the DG. Actually, I wrote him a letter, I think a month ago, explaining in detail what I want the department to do in order to exercise oversight. Now, the DG was naturally a bit frightened because the communication between us by letter presupposes a breakdown in relations. But I had to assure him that no, it's not a breakdown, but I needed to put these things down because it was an extensive submission I was making about my expectations of how the department must manage must exercise oversight on South African Airways. We do meet with SAA every week at the highest level through Anthony and Ravesh. We meet with the EXCO, go through a number of issues every week, but once the new CEO is there, we then need to intensify the ways of engaging without undermining the CEO in his responsibilities. The board has taken steps which normally you would say they should have waited until there's a new CEO. That is with regard to the appointment of a chief restructuring officer as well as initiating the process of the appointment of the recruitment of the chief commercial officer. Now, the new CEO will walk into office almost at the same time as the CRO. Ordinarily, you would say they should have waited for the CEO to be appointed and to undertake those appointments himself. But I think the pressure of the moment was such that they needed to act. Because it's also not only the airline that we must think about, it's also the perception of South Africans about how the airline is operating, the perception of South Africans about how we are managing their resources, the perception of the lenders, the investor community, the ratings agencies about how we're managing state assets. And we need to manage that. And at SAA, one of the things is that we really just have to bring on board the critical skills that will enable us to take relevant decisions. So, honorable members raise a question, Chair, of the aviation expertise. We are bringing those on board both at the board level as well as at the EXCO level, so that we are balanced in both respects. So we are taking responsibility towards that effect. Now, coming to the fifth freedom rights, you know, there is an urgent need. We have had an initial discussion between the Minister of Transport and I about aligning the sector policy vis-a-vis the management of SAA and SA Express. It's correct. SAA will never land at Heathrow, pick passengers up and proceed to Manchester. We don't do it anywhere. But we have allowed it to be done in South Africa. Cannot be right. Because whereas if the notion of liberalizing the skies and the implementation of other international protocols must apply to us, it must apply to somebody, to others as well. They mustn't look at us and say, do this, but we won't do it in our own country. So we are in conversation, and I think we will set in motion a process to deal with that. I think taking into consideration all legal and contractual arrangements that may be relevant in this regard, because you also don't want to take a patently illegal decision that you will go and lose in court, because that in itself becomes a wasteful expenditure, because you should have known that you were going to lose. But we're looking at the matter, and we will take relevant policies and in regard to dealing with that. Honorable Liz, the section 16, we agree, it was not the best and the first option we would have wanted. It was not. We found ourselves in such a situation that, having considered all other options, at the very last moment, we then had to invoke this decision in order to deal, because the risk of triggering a domino effect with regard to other debts, both within SAA and at other state-owned companies, was quite high, and it would remain heightened, especially given the focus on the governance of our state-owned companies and the low confidence among investors about how we are managing, particularly our big state-owned companies. And that's why the decision by ESCOM last week was also so important. Because had they not taken that decision and DBSA went on to exercise its options and call their loan, the other class 1 lenders would also have been triggered to call their loans. And that's a substantial amount of money. It would have thrown us into a financial crisis. And this is the issue that we've been saying everywhere, that we all need, as shareholder representatives, respectively, and as the shareholder collectively, to be very alive to the heightened focus on our state-owned companies and the need for us to do the right things in terms of governance, not because we are scared of penalties, but because it's just the right thing to do. And so we unfortunately found ourselves in that situation. I certainly don't think it's going to be a modus operandi going forward, because we now are paying attention and, among others, engaging different ministers on the issues of the guarantees, the governance of state-owned companies. We've raised the issue with the president and deputy president. The deputy president chairs the SOC Reform Committee. We've raised the matter of governance and that we need to strengthen the governance mechanisms in all the state-owned companies, your SAA, SABC, ESCOM, DINEL, and others, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where lenders lose confidence or, out of anxiety, decide that they are going to call their loans, which means we need to find money that we had not budgeted for as cash in order to pay off the debts. The reason why we are not making an announcement now is because I don't want to undermine you in the standing committee. The MTBPS process needs to be respected, especially when you're going to be talking about appropriation. I need to follow the right process. We need to look at all the steps and measures we must take, and and so don't worry. We will come back. We will brief you about what we are proposing, and how we suggest we should move forward. The reports are not final. The management is responding, and I hope that the chair will indicate when will they finalize all the reports. It is my understanding that there are other contracts that have been requested by the forensic investigators which have not been furnished to them. And I do expect that the board will not only furnish those contracts to the investigators, but will take action against those who have been stalling that process. Because whether there is wrongdoing or not, the fact that you hire a forensic investigator and then don't cooperate with them creates unnecessary suspicion. And so you need to act with speed to allow those contracts to be investigated and cleared. And so it's gonna be a bit of a process. That's the reports which have now been submitted in draft form will receive management responses and then go on to be finalized. And the contracts which have not yet been forwarded to the investigators must, as a matter of urgency, be forwarded. And I will pay attention myself to that issue. The issue of the chair, you will remember that, well, you know that Cabinet took a decision that the chair's contract is renewed for 1 year, non-renewable. The chair has been on the board for 8 years now. The previous minister wrote to the chair a letter about that. So we will start a process. I'm not in a position to make any announcement today. So I will, Chair, once we've made the decision. Yes. So I've spoken about the details of the performance requirements of the new CEO. The remuneration package is a confidential matter. I'm unable to disclose it in public. I think the relevant structures will do that. I do confirm that we did not entice him. He applied himself, so he knew what he was applying for. There is no mention of private equity because we were dealing with a report in part, and all of those issues, once they've been lined up, we will come back and announce them. Who is being held accountable for all of these problems? The reports make suggestions which, once they've been finalized, the board will be expected in terms of Section 34. Where is it Section 34 of the Criminal Procedure Act. Oh, Section 34 of POCA. The board will be expected to take criminal actions against those that are implicated in wrongdoing. Derek, I'm sure the board will explain. He is. At least he's a comrade. The board, I think, will respond to by when do they expect to become a going concern. And the plan is there. Look, there is revenue that SAA must just simply pick up. Just simply pick up. Estimated 60 million rand in ticket sales a month, cost savings at various levels, including reviewing the incentives paid to some of their staff, the revenue leakages that need to be saved, amounting to about 766 million rand per annum. All of those, it is estimated that about 1.7 billion rand could potentially be saved by SAA, with another approximately 700 million in irregular expenditure on a small sample of contracts that could be saved and that could come into the revenue on an annual basis. And that's why I was saying, the problem, we shouldn't really say no global recession. It affected every airline. But there is just revenue management that needs revenue management, contract management, internal controls that need to be implemented so that we are able to see the airline coming back to financial sustainability and becoming a going concern again. The recap, we will announce that. It's not going to come from, I've not spoken about the sale of Telkom. I've not said that we will sell our shares at Telkom, but we will look at where we can find the recap. It's not just announcing a once-off. We need to announce a plan for SAA so that we know that over the next 3 years, this is what we will be giving SAA on an annual basis to bring it back to financial sustainability. But I've said to the board, and I wish to repeat it now, there's no way we're going to give SAA money for free. All of these leakages the internal controls, the governance lapses have got to be addressed as part and parcel of the recapitalization. Because then what we do is, as Honorable Shivambu was saying, you're throwing money into a bottomless pit. You're not assisting SAA. We're not going to babysit it and treat it like a child. The airline has potential to be financially sustainable, and let the board demonstrate. This 5% salary cut is commendable. We want more. Not in terms of salary cuts, but in terms of savings, in terms of rationalization systems, in terms of, they must demonstrate to South Africans that South Africans are correct to give them support. Because otherwise, what are we asking our people to do? So we are looking at an entire plan, and I think when we do announce, we will also release the conditionalities that attach to the recapitalization plan. Is the board operating effectively as a team? I would certainly hope so. I myself have read, I was saying to them this morning that I want to meet with them and deal with some of the issues which have been partly in the public space so that we can strengthen the board and show that they operate as a team. Honorable Tikeledi, now, I was on the page of the committee calling everybody by their first name until when I called Honorable Derek, you called me to order. So I revert back to formality.
This committee, we all revert each other by first names, except for one person, yeah.
So the coincidence between the CEO appointment and the postponement, and our request to postpone the meeting is really just plain coincidental. Had we met yesterday, we would have missed the opportunity to ask Cabinet for a special meeting to sit just to appoint the CEO. And I'm grateful to the chair and committee members for allowing us, but also so that I can be present myself. Will SAA ever experience financial sustainability? Yes, they will. They will. I am undertaking, I must say, I am undertaking a board review. I'm undertaking an independent shareholders board review so that I can make I can get proper assessment of the board and then be able to take a decision about how to tighten the board, how to restructure where it needs to be restructured. We will engage organized labor, and Honorable Pinky, I think the issues I've just indicated with regard to the board review, the route networks, and the engagements with the transport minister also apply to the questions you've received, you've asked. And the incentives of the pilots also must deal with racial and gender dimensions. If you are a woman, because you've never been a pilot before, it means, I think most women on SAA who are pilots have not been there for very long, which means that their incentives are lower than their male counterparts. Which means which has a number of dimensions, including that your most senior captains choose their routes, choose where they want to fly, and then once they have chosen, then it goes like that, right up if you are just brand new, then you'll take all the routes that nobody else wanted to take. So we need to deal with that, because in terms of incentives and other things, and there's a lot that I could say in this regard, which I think I shouldn't say, because we need to discuss with the board and take a decision about what will happen. The issues that Honorable Floyd raised, I agree with him. that we need to deal with the consistency of the reports we bring to the committee and how they demonstrate progress, and where there has been no progress, we need to be candid enough to say on this issue and that one. So it means that we ourselves must look at the reports we bring from quarter to quarter and show consistency in the reports that we are bringing. I think I've commented on the issue of the disposal of assets. I agree that the board does need to engage the cabin crew and the workers, and I think in light of the decision that has been taken, for example, with regard to the CE, the board will do the right thing and engage the members of staff. Mamu Shopestole, actually, the problems at SAA predate even National Treasury. They are quite old. I dealt with them. I found them there at DPE. I dealt with them. I left. I come back. They are still there, and often and actually worse. As I was saying earlier, the turnaround strategy adopted in 2013 was just simply abandoned. And it puts us where we are now. And so we need to deal with that. I agree in principle the issue is leadership that we need to exercise as Treasury, as the board, cascading down to the EXCO, and all other relevant structures. There will be no privatization of SAA. There will be no privatization of SAA. SAA is going to remain a state asset. It will be turned around. It will come right. The wrongdoers are going to be dealt with. Nobody is going to be protected or shielded from action. I appreciate, Chair, the healthy skepticism. It actually is a good, it's healthy. The healthy skepticism is healthy. It gives us an opportunity to review and evaluate ourselves, the work we do and the reports we bring here. And to answer, because I don't think the question, what's new in what you are saying, is a question that must be answered by a single individual. I think we all must answer, what's new? How are we going to ensure? I mean, this is actually not, the 2013 turnaround strategy was not the first to be ditched. It was, I think, the 5th, if I'm not mistaken, 8th. It was the 8th. And when we announced it in 2013, we were asked exactly the same question. What's new? How are you going to ensure that this doesn't get ditched? And then it got ditched. So here we are with the 9th. It's no joke. It's not fun at all. Because our credibility hangs on this. It hangs on this. And I think if we all took the view that we have credibility issues arising out of our failure to implement the turnaround strategy and bring SAA back to sustainability, then we would act differently and ensure that the strategies that we have are implemented. We will respond on the question whether there are any non-core assets at SAA. We are in the process of identifying non-core assets generally across the board. And we had committed in the 14 confidence boosting measures we announced in July, was it June? Somewhere there, 13th June. We indicated that we would come back I mean, the non-core assets, we would complete the process of identifying them and engaging on them by March 2018. But SAA is not business as usual. So that process with regard to SAA is certainly going to be expedited so that we can also look at where we could take decisions that assist us to strengthen the balance sheet of the airline, stop the leakages, and ensure that it becomes viable. And I think once we complete that process, again, we will inform the committee and make the necessary announcements. And I think, Chair, I have responded to the question to the statement you made that we must exercise far greater oversight on SAA through the weekly meetings led by Anthony and the acting CE, and the letter I wrote to the DG. And once there is a new CEO, we will obviously intensify our engagements. So I think these were questions that were due to me, and then the board can deal with their own.
Thank you much for that. Over then to the board chair and the board, and then the management.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'm just going to add one area which the Minister did not touch on the issue of the Bloemfontein route that was raised by Honorable Thandi. SA Express is independent from SAA. It's got its own board and its own shareholder. And therefore, our relationship with them is the code share relationship. And then the other airline that flies to Bloemfontein and various other small towns is Airlink, which is privately owned as well. And SAA has a very small minority, less than 3% stake at Airlink. Chair, on the matter of the requirement, I mean, what is requested that I need to apologize? No, should we leave that to the end? Okay. All right. Thank you. Then I'll ask the CEO then to respond to some of the questions that has been raised, and the CFO. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the one question that I was asked by Honorable Thandi that she requested the CFO to answer. I will hand over to the CFO to answer that question, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think Honorable Minister has responded to that to say we are engaging with the lenders, and the amount that is due on the 30th of September is 6.9 billion. I would like to add on the question that was asked in terms of will SAA ever be able to make profits, and more to add to say the 5-year turnaround plan that we have completed, attached to it is a detailed initiatives for 5 years. And attached to it, that 5 years, it's even detailed to quarter. So we've got targets that we have on a quarterly basis, to the extent that for the 2017-18 year end, for quarter one, we only had 5 million on those initiatives on the cost savings, but it then builds up quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. On revenue alone, the initiatives are totaling to 720, and on revenue are totaling to 520. So the initiatives in total for 2017 year end are totaling to 1.2 billion. High-level results of the 5-year turnaround plan are saying for the 17-18 year end, the company will post a loss of 2.8 billion. Remember, we're coming from a loss of 4.8 billion. In the following year, the losses will improve to 1.8 billion. But in year 1920, the company will start posting profits. It's fair to also highlight that the total revenue initiatives for the period, which is 5 years, are totaling to 13 billion. The cost optimization, which are the savings, are totaling to 10 billion. So in total, both revenue and cost, the initiatives are totaling to 23 billion. And Chair, they are detailed per quarter, per year.
Can we move on? Is there anything else you want to say?
Yes, I just wanted to highlight the issue that general management will not have an increase this year, but they have not undertaken that salary sacrifice. It's just members of EXCO.
That's welcome anyway. Right, can you continue? Is there anything else you want to say? You have your light on. Do you want to say? Oh, okay. Are we? Okay, members, we're running fast out of time, so I need some guidance from you. But in the meanwhile, can we just round this up? Is there something that's outstanding? I know the one issue is attendance of board meetings, but if you see your file, there is an answer provided there. Okay, unless you have a follow-up to that, I take it that's covered. Mr. Lees and Thandi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alf,
You
yeah.
did stop me earlier, so yes.
Next item. Yeah, Thandi, on the first item, we're running fast out of
Chair, it's on the first item. Actually, I'm trying to bring this to the attention of the minister that we've been requesting that the recap should be presented to us. So we'll appreciate if in the near future that can be presented so that we do the necessary check and balances. So I was saying he should take it. We'll appreciate if it's done by him the same way he has taken the other matters, because we've been making this request for quite a long time. So it will, yeah.
BPS process that defines the framework. It comes to our joint committees. Okay, having said that, can we move on? There's just one thing that I don't want us to preoccupy ourselves with right now. When we're talking of the overall strategic plan, the corporate plan, call it what you will, turnaround strategy, we don't deal in this meeting with transformation per se. Now that's a very important aim you have. So when we meet on the 13th of September or thereabouts, can you speak a bit more? We have an item here, colleagues, if you look at 7B, but it's separated from item 1. Its transformation is a crucial part of your strategic objectives as well. So I would suggest we discuss item 7B when we meet in September. On the progress of an appointment of senior managers, can I suggest that has been covered quite comprehensively? Can we dispense with that for now? That means all we've got left then are financials and issues around corruption that are in the public domain and have been hinted to various times when we meet here. Now, is there a feeling amongst the committee members that we can stay beyond 1300? How many people can stay beyond 1300? No. So I'll have to manage.
We've already lost the lady.
Only 2 of you. Okay. So then in that case, we'll have to finish at 1300. So can we hand over then, my friend, to you on financials?
Thank you, Chairperson. Apologies.
Most 20 minutes, okay?
Yes. Chairperson, apologies, the computer has died. I think the battery has died.
It's ours. We apologize to you.
But it has been circulated as part of the presentation. Chairperson, I'm presenting the first quarter of the 2017-18 financial year end, which is April, May, and June. Okay. Apologies for that, Chair. Chair, the actual results versus the budget are not looking good for the first quarter. With the same token, it's fair to also say, if you compare the first quarter of 17-18 to the quarter of last year, the results are almost similar. So basically, we are in a business that is very cyclical. So normally, the quarter one is not a good quarter. Basically, it does not mean it's an indication of what will happen throughout the year. So basically, you cannot take the results of first quarter and multiply by 4 to try and predict the results for the entire year. But Chair, we projected a loss of 813 million. we ended up with a loss of 1.399 billion. The significant part of that loss, Chair, is the decline in revenue. Before I talk about the decline in revenue, Chair, it's suffice to say the company is facing liquidity challenges. The company is in financial constraint. But if we were in a perfect world, to get our monies that are blocked in the countries where they've got shortages of dollars, we've got an amount to approximately 1 billion that is blocked. If we could get that 1 billion and we'll use it for working capital, the company would sail it through in terms of working capital up until the end of 2017-18 financial year end. But we also appreciate the effort that has been taken at our shareholder level in terms of engaging with the Angola being the highest, that the monies are coming, but how I wish they would come at the amount, because Angola alone is sitting with about 62 million US dollars. The shortages in revenue, Chair, is more the yield management, which the actions have been taken in terms of implementing the strategy, in terms of fixing the pricing, and also fixing, Honorable Thandi asked, what have we done? We have implemented some initiatives on the price adjustment and also on yield management. But the business that we are in, it takes a bit longer to see the results. From the commercial department, they have indicated that, for example, they have introduced the lower lead in fares relative to non-stop schedules and all that. So there are initiatives, except that for the first quarter, the customers have booked before. So now we'll start seeing the results on the initiatives that we've activated on revenue from Q3 going forward. On the cost side of the business, we've seen that there's an operating, if you compare the budget and the loss, the budget and the actual, there's a saving of 4%. But if you ask me if I'm happy, the answer is no. Maybe going back to revenue. If you split your revenue between your local revenue and your foreign currency denominated, the percentage there is 41-49, which is 41 is the foreign currency. So in this year, we have seen the rand strengthening. One, I would not like to be seen as if I'm blaming the currency. In this situation, one, the business is not performing. But I would like to also highlight that 41% of the revenue is foreign currency denominated. So we projected when we're doing the budget that the average rate will be 13.58, and it ended up at 12.94. It had made an impact on the revenue on those shortages that I've highlighted. But then you should see the swing on the cost as well. Because on our cost, the split as well is almost the same. One would say, which it should be, the impact should be minimal. Hence I'm saying the 332 million that we see as a savings on the operating cost, we are not happy because of that 230 relates to currency. So it's only 100 million that is a pure savings. Hence, we also activated the initiatives on the cost optimization. Chair, without going too much into detail, one thing that I also wanted to highlight was we've seen the average load factors. As I said, the problem is on yields. They are below what we've expected. Average fares were also below what we budgeted for. I have already highlighted the initiatives that we're embarking on to say in Q1 of the year that we've started on. We didn't anticipate many initiatives. It was 5 million on the cost, and we're happy to say that actual, in fact, was not 5 million, it was 7 million. On the CCO, I would like to highlight the CCO, and Honorable Thandi impressed the displeasure on the 35 million that we are achieving as a cost avoidance so far. And I would like to say that 35 million, it is something, because if you multiply it by 12, that is 420 million. In fact, it says that is the cost that the company could have spent on, which is not a necessity, rather a luxury. At the same time, I would like to also add and say, when we're saying we are doing a cash conservation office, we are not, because one was saying, seeing the maintenance on our income statement having reduced compared to budget, to say it means now we are compromising our quality. We are not. 100% or 98% of the maintenance is foreign currency denominated. Hence, that cost is below because the exchange rate was, the currency strengthened. So, Chair, those are the highlights that I wanted to add, but also what I wanted to add was on the initiatives on routes that acting CEO was talking about. If you look at the turnaround plan, they were relating to the other years, to the outer years of our financial year end. But because of the situation that we find ourselves in, we then said over and above what is the target for 17-18, we need to go and then look in terms of what is it that we can activate to ensure that we start reducing the cash burn now. Thank you, Chair. I'll take any questions.
Okay, Mr. Lees, you had questions, Alf, and then Tandi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, may I just start by saying that I think that the reports we got from SAA were exemplary. I asked for a whole list of reports. We got them. And I wish to thank the CFO, I think, mainly for providing those reports. But whoever was involved, I think it's unusual to get that. And I wrote to you about it and with little hope, and I was proven to be a cynical old bugger. So thank you very much for those. And rightly they should have come through, because obviously there's oversight that needs to be done. So, Mr. Chairman, if one looks then at those reports, the cash flow was a horror story, and I've commented widely on it already and in the media and other places. So the question really is, where is SAA today? I mean, have we paid our suppliers and creditors and full salaries for July, or are we hedging? Are we hoping that money's going to come in? Because your cash flow analysis indicates it's just going to get worse right through to September. And then I'm not sure why suddenly there's provision for 792 million rand to be paid in by Treasury. I don't know where so if you could just let me know why that money, why Treasury, why you have actually put it into the cash flow as income. So it must be a commitment, I presume, from Treasury. So where are we with the payments at the end of July? And as the Minister has now very carefully put me in my place and said he's not going to tell us until October, how are you going to meet the expenses in September? Now, forget about the loan repayments. So I mean, it's one thing. That's why I was saying, well, yeah, I mean, the interest rate might not be not be acceptable. so but Mr. Chairman, we do need to be a happy group, and I'm happy to be that. But this actually is a very serious thing, because we want to save SAA. We don't want the creditors to start now liquidation proceedings because they don't get paid, and that's a danger. And we really don't want to lose SAA. We really don't. No matter what other people might think, we don't. We want to save SAA. And that must be the top of our agenda. So, Mr. Chairman, the 5-year plan corporate plan for SAA was ATC this morning. I've got a copy of it now. We haven't talked about it today, but it is available to whoever wants it. And so I'm now going to have a little dig back at the minister, because on page 16 of that plan, there's a table at the top. And in that table, it says sources of funds, 13 billion. And there's an entry there that I can't really see clearly. It says source of funds, what looks to me like PIC, but it could be PC. But perhaps the minister would like to tell me what it is.
We didn't deliberate.
Yeah. Wherever it's coming from, that we need some clarity.
Don't tell it all, don't tell it all.
I like to be open and transparent, Mr. Chairman. I don't like to play games. Was the tongue in my cheek, Mr. Chairman? So from the financial point of view, Mr. Chairman, the CFO is correct. Every business has seasonal variations. But nevertheless, the fact is that with the currency adjustments, SAA for 3 months has now run at a loss of 1.5 billion rand. So that's approximately 500 million rand a month. Now, if you compare it, as she correctly does, with the performance on the same quarter in the previous year, it's much the same. So I would accept that one can't take that 1.5 and multiply by 4 to get a loss for the year. But I think it would be reasonable to say that we're going to finish the year at a similar level as we did last year, which, if I remember correctly, was 4.7 billion rand. Now, I understand you've got a whole lot of plans for cost savings and for revenue enhancement. And I'll get to the revenue enhancement in a minute. But we've seen these before. We've heard about these before. And so I know you can sit there and commit yourself. We're going to do it this time where we failed in the past. But I'm afraid I don't have a great deal of confidence, for want of another word. So I'm really concerned, because you haven't come here and said we have achieved X and this has now set us on the path. It's yet again, this is what we plan to do. And so that really is a major concern, that we're going to go through this current financial year and land up in a very bad place. But just to go back to the revenue enhancement, what happened with the Mumbai route? It was a profitable route. Why did we stop flying to Mumbai? Who did we give it to? Who's now doing that route? Then the other one, Mr. Chairman, is, I'm not going to argue against trying to deal with airlines in South Africa in the international way it's done, whether it's protecting local routes or whatever it is. I'm not going to argue about that. But what I'm going to say to you is, why do SAA stop flying international flights from Cape Town? Why is now Lufthansa, British Airways, and others flying into Cape Town? No SAA flights going internationally from Cape Town now. Now, I know you might say it's Johannesburg is the hub and you're going to fly people to Johannesburg, but people want to fly to now I'm going to put my tongue in my cheek, to the tourism hub of South Africa, to Cape Town directly. I'm glad you're smiling, Mr.
Is it the tourism hub?
My tongue is in my cheek. And yet SAA don't offer that service. Now, I presume that a proper due diligence study was done, but then if it showed as unprofitable, how come these other international airlines are flowing in? So, Mr. Chairman, it's not just the simple things that we're talking about. There's a great deal more to it. And when I said earlier about who's being held accountable, well, who made these decisions? And what action has been taken? So, Mr. Chairman, on the finances, let me again say congratulations. Really a lot of information which makes our job much easier. However, there's one thing in this CFO, in your cash flow analysis, and I'm afraid I've criticized this in public already. If you're doing a cash flow and you know that there's I think you said another figure, let's say 6.8 billion that has to be paid at the end of September, and you don't put it in your cash flow, why not? It's cash that has to be paid out. You haven't negotiated yet with the banks to say we'll roll it over. As of now, it has to be paid by the 30th of September. That's 6.8 billion. As I understand what we're being told today, we're still negotiating according to the minister, but those negotiations haven't been completed. So I'm sorry, it should have been there. And what it would do to your cash flow, of course, is it would show that 900 million escalating to 8 billion cash shortfall at the end of September. And that's the real picture until negotiations are completed and the banks say, we'll roll over, or we find another supplier of the cash, whether it's a sale of Telkom shares, which the minister has alluded to, that it's not his idea, it's Alf Lee's idea, but whatever. It's a small criticism, but you gave us all the information in the loan details, which allowed us to actually come to the same conclusion. So it wasn't completely hidden, but I think it should have been there. Then, Mr. Chairman, my last point is the last list of loans given to us suddenly has dropped the names of the lenders. Now, I can go back to the previous list and I can try and identify who they are. But why has that happened? Have the lenders got nasty with you for telling us in, whenever it was, June, I think, who owed us what? Or are we trying to hide something? Why is it suddenly lender A, B, C, D, D? Thank you, Mr. One last thing, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. Mr. Chairman, I think I've written to the minister. I think I've written to you asking that I be allowed to attend the AGM. I haven't had a reply, and I know it's probably not a long time since I wrote, but let me just put the question to you here. Can I please attend the AGM of SAA?
Right, it's Thandi and then Floyd, and I alert you to this, that we've got 2 more items, and it's 12:20.
Chair, I don't see Bra Peter. Is he here? Because I want to remind him what I said. Where is he? Oh, okay. Never mind. You see, let me start at the end. You see, when I was whispering, don't tell it all, Minister, you were not there when we had a heated discussions. You see, let me tell you up front, these guys want to know your equity partners, right? And you see, you don't listen to me. I said to you, it's there. And you know, I put it out in a joke form because, you see, equity partnership, it's where people are interested in the corporate world because that's where they invest. And I like what you did by putting a table that doesn't actually exposes the lenders. And you see, this is not happy because those investors rely on this information that you give up front as to who are your equity partners and in terms of the stake, what is the stake, Minister, you see. But you see, and I know Malusi Gigaba, I don't know Jan talk of fellow because now you're creating problems for us. We now working very hard to try and explain some of the things that you can't explain. And I'm sometimes I don't have that energy. CFO, I'm pushing you. You see, I'm pushing you very hard to work more, and I'll tell you why.
And she's doing well.
No, she is. But if you tell her, she won't do what we want her to do. We want her to turn it around, you see. And we want the other managers to listen to her because she deals with financials. You see, in relation to cost optimization, it was at 700 million the last time. And if you look at where it stands now, it's not tweaked that much. So you'll understand why I'm doing this. I'm trying to push it there where we can. I'm not going to be interested in losses. Losses are there. They will be there because there's something that we're trying to achieve here. But look at what I'm going to ask you, and I want the minister to listen. In terms of your working capital, have you spoken to the shareholder to consider not only giving you funds when you're dealing with loans, but because that's what you need right now, you see? And you're too shy to approach, I don't know who does that on your behalf. Is it the chairperson of the board or whoever it is? But be frank with the minister and say, give us a working capital. Because changes are made through a working capital, okay? So, because when you are that liquid, you are able to do things, including how you compete with your competitors. Because it's through the cash injections that you do the campaigns, the programs, and so on, that will help. So don't be shy to talk to him and say, can you give us a working capital, and we've projected at this much. He might not give you all that you want, but it takes you somewhere, okay? So let's deal with that part. And I said I must be paid every time I make these suggestions, because it's not part of my work. You see, it's additional homework, and now I don't know who pays for me. The 41% that makes the total 86% of revenue decline. It's good that you explained it, but the suggestion will be, if you are able to push it at 35, you will be able to push it at 25, at least something like working on a 5% or 10% of that. Then it tweaks and makes a difference. And that's where the question comes in, where I said, get the working capital, because it gives you the resources that you need to mobilize for you to be able to change. And if you're shying away from doing that, it's not going to change. The other savings that you mobilize, including the blocked funds, as they not come on time, it's not going to make changes. So your balance sheet will come back the same way. So be robust, including those who are not making savings, who are managers. At some point, you must tell them what you want, because you the bookkeeper, they can't be doing what they're doing as they are doing it, and you take responsibility to even have to change how the balance sheet looks like. And even if you, because I suspect you give them the warning signs in advance, when there's going to be losses, or they will not be able to raise the funds that you expect for the book. So don't be shy. Maybe you might be younger than them, but be aggressive, because it takes you there. So thanks, Chair. Let me stop there.
And that's it for this round.
No, thanks, Chair.
Before Fred, sorry, Askis,
Very quick.
I just wanted to say to the minister, you might want to give the remuneration package list you are taking through PAJA. So even if it's not today, at a later stage, you might want to present it. Yeah.
No, thanks, Chair. I wanted us to assure the appointed CEO of SAA that he has got the autonomy to then draft or present a turnaround strategy. So there must not be an impression created that Parliament is approved of any turnaround strategy that has been presented by this management. Because if we say that, because the way the CFO is speaking, and it's as if there's a plan which the new CEO must just come and implement. It will not work like that. Let's give the new CEO the autonomy. Let's insulate the space that is going to work on to come with interventions that are going to rescue the airline, because I honestly have got difficulty with believing anything which these people are saying. Since SAA was shifted from DPE to the Standing Committee or to the National Treasury in terms of oversight, there's not been any recovery of anything. It has been crisis after crisis. There have been problems after problems. And it's problems that are definitive or reflective of the incompetence of the chairperson of the board as well. Throughout their tenure, there's not been anything meaningful that came from SAA. Chairperson, there are criminals here who are shouting at me when I'm speaking here.
Who's that?
These people here.
If you're from the public, you must observe the decorum or you must leave, whoever that is.
Please.
Now, sorry?
You are not allowed to speak in Parliament. You're not elected in Parliament. You must
Yeah,
shut
you don't
up
have
and
any
go and
rights
stand outside there.
Can we be
Please.
clear? Floyd, you've made your point about the SAA board chair. It's not relevant now. Everybody agrees
Then,
broadly The
Yeah.
minister's announced that he's going to appoint a new board chair. Can we move on now? What's the point you make?
Then I want, like, I think maybe as a committee we should get an assurance that Cabinet is going to stick to its September 2 announcement that Dudumieni was appointed for 1 term. And there's going to be a new person by the new chairperson by the time the SA board comes to report again. Because I don't think we must take anything serious that has got Dudumieni in it. I'm looking forward to a Dudumieni-less board, which is going to take SAA forward. And I think that is the attitude that we must take, because all these things that we've been entertaining here is basically nonsense that we must handle like that. Let us look forward to the new leadership of SAA. There's a new CEO. Let's give them space to turn around the airline. Thank you.
Masitole Shope.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just request that as Parliament, when we invite people to come and appear before us, we must respect them, especially women. Thank you.
Okay, just very quickly.
Chair, just on a point of order,
Yeah.
I agree with the point made, but at the same time, I mean, you wouldn't be aware of this, but during our interventions, we are being heckled by the individuals sitting over there.
No, we're not going to allow that. Who's doing this?
It
and
seems that
who
they
are they?
hopped in Brian Malefe's red Audi and
Who's this
are
now?
now heckling.
All right,
members.
there's nothing more to say. If you're a member of the public, you have to abide by the decorum, the rules. I don't care where they're from.
Well, it's the chairperson's stormtroopers.
Which? Well, we don't have any. Look, whoever you are.
Chairperson, we've got thugs from BLF here who must leave this place here. When we're talking here, they're busy
Where
talking
they
because
from, they can
they are
check.
militia of
Can Floyd
Dudumieni
refrain
that have
from
been hired
calling
to come
people
here and
thugs?
shout at us. Please.
That's his right, actually. If they're behaving thuggishly, that's his right. That's the ruling. I'm not going to. Now, look, whoever
then,
you
Chair,
are and wherever you're from, you cannot interrupt members of parliament. No parliament of the world allows that. So unless you're going to behave, I'd ask you to leave, okay? So please stop that. Now, can we continue? I want to raise some issues. One, firstly, I'm still not clear, will SAA be able to pay its salaries? Can you answer that question? Secondly, I just want to suggest, I don't want to go back to the past, I'm just alerting the board to this. As I remember it, a member of this committee, the last time round in June, late June, asked you whether it's, well, we didn't know this at that stage, now you yourself have revealed it. You were asked, is it not true that you're being challenged to pay your salary bill? And will you be able to pay your salary bill? The way it was presented to us was that there isn't a challenge. And that, you know, it was suggested almost as if, as I remember it, you know, maybe Antonio can help the researchers, as if that was just wild statements. But in fact, what we now see is that you are challenged. So I want to alert the board and the management to this. There are rules in Parliament. And you cannot like misrepresent. So if this happens again, we're going to take the action that the rules require. One doesn't need a mandate from any party. I'm not going to call a study group meeting and get a mandate around rules. You must go and change the rules you want. If you do what the rules don't allow, you will be penalized, firstly. Secondly, also, if it's correct, I do not have the technical sort of capacity that somebody like Alf has got. But if it's correct what he's saying, that you are hiding the fact that the loan is going to be maturing at the end of September, and that becomes part of the need to, if it's correct, according to the norms of financial reporting, then that's also wrong, and we must desist from it. I don't know if it's correct. I can check it out, right? So perhaps you want to reply to that so that we know that everything you're saying is open and transparent, as it has to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The first one, Chair, that I would like to start with is the last one, in terms of the amount that is due on the 30th of September, why it's not in the cash flow. Chair, when you look at the history of SAA, And where we come from, in the last 5 years, when the loans are maturing, we engage with the lenders and request the lenders to extend. It was on that assumption that was taken out of the cash flow. But when you look into the balance sheet, in terms of the accounting treatment, it requires us, because the loan is maturing in the next 12 months, it requires you to classify it into the short-term loan, and it is classified as such.
Questions,
Yes,
please. Yeah.
thank you, Chair. The second one is, will we be able to pay salaries or our suppliers? As we have highlighted that SAA currently is facing liquidity challenges, or rather crisis. We are making arrangement with our suppliers, and we are honoring those obligations with our suppliers. We are also prioritizing the salaries, Chair.
You'll be able to pay them.
Yes, Chair, we will be able to pay them.
Any other responses you want to offer?
Mr. Chairman, what are you negotiating with suppliers? Extended credit terms, so you're not paying them now, but you'll pay them later? Is that what you're saying? Because you very quickly made a comment. So the question really is, have the suppliers who should have been paid at the end of July been paid? And if not, what kind of arrangements have you made for an extended payment?
Thank you, Chair. I can provide this committee with the detail, but we have made arrangement with the suppliers. Now we have more than 20 suppliers, that, Chair, that we spoke to, where I think the point that I'm trying to make is some of them were due on the 30th of July. And on the 30th of July, we were not able to pay the 100% of the money that we're owing. We paid some, and we are paying them. So we've made arrangements, and we are honoring those arrangements. I think the simple answer is we didn't pay 30th of July. We didn't pay 100% of the monies that we're owing the suppliers, but we are paying them progressively.
Effectively, Mr. Chairman, what this is doing then is 30th, some, not all, have been moved to perhaps to the end of August, but then you've got your August plus what was left over from July to pay. Are we going to meet those obligations?
Other arrangements that we've made with some suppliers include not paying them a lump sum, but pay them on a weekly basis. So we're trying to ensure that come month end, we don't owe double or triple. So as we get revenue, we pay them on a weekly basis. Those are the kind of arrangements that we have with the suppliers. So we are managing them carefully, Chair.
Can I just remind members, we're going to meet with SA, I think on the 13th of September, as I keep saying. What I want to alert you now to is, can we, by next week, middle of next week, structure the agenda so that we don't cover the same issues repeatedly and we move forward, okay? And one of the things that Alpha has helped in regard to is we haven't looked at the corporate plan per se, but that is because of the nature of the input from the minister, which I think was extremely valuable and helpful. Minister, may I once again say, I sound like an imbongi, which is unusually me, but I really think you've been very helpful throughout your inputs today. So can I say that some of these issues, I think we need more time. And the committee, especially those of us who don't have some of the technical capacity that other members have, I would like Antonia and Zakele, and I see Esther here if she wants to help, work around concrete questions that we prepare beforehand as well, okay? But for now, can I suggest, given the limited time we have, that we move on? So we're mandating you to help. There's lots of gaps in some of the questions we've asked. There are missing questions. We need to go through this carefully. So, we'll start with the corporate plan next time. And then move on, so that our approach is incremental also, and we get more sophisticated also in our exchanges with you. Having said that, I want to just take it that the discussion on answers to outstanding questions, the questions came mainly from the DA. For now, it's fine, right? The minister said the reports will also come. There is something else I want to suggest. One is that, it's something we can decide outside this meeting with Sam's assistance and so on. Do we really want all the reports in the hundreds of pages that they come? It may be that a smaller team can go and meet with SAA in your offices and look at the stuff and extract what is relevant and so on. That might be more productive. So what I'm trying to say is, let's not be mechanical about the way we play our oversight role. Alf, you want to say something regard to that process?
Mr. Chairman, I absolutely agree. I think the report we got, we could have got the summary and then asked questions about the supporting documents if we wanted to, where we wanted to home in or something like that. So I think there's a way of managing this, yeah.
So then we can manage this. Maybe the summary approach is even better, to pull together 3 or 4 people on the same day to go to SAA, although we all pass through our Tambo. It's not so easy. But let's see, there are various options. Let's mull over this thing, and then we can decide how to proceed. Then on the issues around corruption and other irregularities. These are matters that have been raised in this committee. Members keep hinting at it. We hear about it in the public domain. Here, to facilitate this, can members put their questions, please? Right, Alf?
You want me to put the question now? No, Mr. Chairman, I think I've done with that. I'm just noting, though, I did ask a few questions just now, which weren't replied. We didn't get a response about the injection of cash from National Treasury in I think September, 792 million, and then the route things about Mumbai and Cape Town and so on.
Yeah, okay. On the specific questions put, can you quickly reply to them? It's fair. The member requires a reply. Or do you want some time to answer in writing if you want to? But if you can, if there's simple answers, rather reply now in the public domain like it is.
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of Mumbai and the pulling out of Mumbai, the decision was taken 2 years ago. It was the tenure, I think during the tenure of Nico as the acting CEO. The remedy was that we were going to work with Etihad, who were then going to get the connecting flights from the Middle East onwards to Mumbai and onwards to Beijing. But that partnership, as we know, was terminated, and we are reviewing those routes as part of the plan.
The 792 million you asked about?
Thank you, Chair. On the 5-year turnaround plan, Chair, we have an assumption of 13 billion that will receive as a recapitalization from the shareholder over a period of 3 years. Of that, for 17-18, we have an assumption that we will get 5 billion in 2 tranches, 3 billion in October and 5 billion in March. Chair, I would like to highlight to say this is an assumption when we're doing the analysis of the balance sheet to say how much capital injection would the company need to be able to have the balance sheet that will be able to compete with the other airlines. So the 792 is the difference between, because our assumption said in October we'll get 3 billion, we then minus subtracted the 2.2 billion that we have used to settle SCP, it left us with that 792.
All right, can we move on now, please? Okay, so then on the matter of cases of corruption, I think the committee is concerned that in the public domain, Minister, Board Chair, as acting CEO, there are claims and counterclaims of corruption. What's happening with these cases? Are they with the SAPS? Are they within the NPA system? Where are they? Because we cannot continue. Now, recently, some 4 weeks ago or so, somebody was seen, I'm sure you remember, on the first page of the Sunday Independent, there were claims about corruption 6 weeks ago or so. It was made by, I think, one of the structures within the SAA. I can't recall if it was the cabin crew. I think they claimed it. Now, this morning over the radio, it was announced that there's a strike of some sort, and it includes NUMSA, and it's about corruption. The argument being made by the spokesperson of the unions or the staff association is that, yes, the SAA is in big financial trouble, but if it dealt with corruption, many of these financial issues would dissipate. Now, whether that's true or not, what we want to know, Madam Chair, what's going on? Where's progress? What's been followed up? Who's appearing in court? When are they going to appear in court? And the like.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity to respond here. But I'm going to also try and respond to the previous question where we were asked when we are going to conclude these forensic reports or investigation reports. The board took a decision to assign the responsibility of these reports to the Audit and Risk Committee, and therefore the Audit and Risk Chairperson is seized with the matter of all the reports, and then they will all be presented to the board on the 28th of August as final reports. And therefore, I think we welcome what the committee has ruled on in terms of a committee of this committee that would come, maybe a task team that would come to SAA to get a feel in the sense of what is taking place and what is contained in those reports. On the issue of corruption and other irregularities, I have not seen the memorandum that is being served today, as I'm hearing, because I also heard as I was coming here that there is a strike, and the acting CEO did inform us as well earlier on. But in terms of corruption and certain allegations of corruption, the Honorable Chair will recall that last year in November, we raised those issues. And indeed, the board, because it's a new board, it is dealing with issues of corruption and any other irregularities that would be presented. And of course, we did issue a statement as the board that we are not going to tolerate corruption. Those that are alleged to be doing wrong things there will be consequence management. I think I can assure this committee that we are not going to conceal anything wrong that anyone would have done, but we are not wanting also to just use an approach that is not proper. We're going to follow the right process. If it's a whistleblower, the Audit and Risk Committee, together with the internal auditor that is at SAA, they are going to present to us on the 28th of August. Perhaps we can also respond to this committee in writing after the 28th of August to say item number 4, how it is being dealt with. Thank you.
I suggest that firstly we keep this issue on the agenda for the next meeting and the next 2 or 3 meetings. Sorry? No, I know. But, okay, what do you want us to do? I'm suggesting a way because we also have to discuss the matter of Mrs. Mayani's allegations against her before we part and get a mandate from the committee now to proceed. Now, the question is that, yeah, that's not really an answer. I think Mrs. Mayani herself will agree. What we are saying, however, is that she's got a date, which she's given us. It's a very concrete one, 28th of August. We are meeting in the middle of September. I don't think we all want corruption to be like, like a big issue forever. But given the staggering levels of corruption in the country as a whole, and the determination of the majority party and the government and all of us, whichever party we come from, to stamp it out over time, I think this issue should remain here, and we will find various ways and means of addressing it apart from within the committee, the open committee, but we all report back in an open committee, some structure and exchanges, and will facilitate that. So shall I suggest, well, may I suggest, and if it's agreeable, let's move on, that for now we move on from this issue. Right. Yeah, do you want to say, yeah?
Not to do with that, but I just want to quickly, what the minister didn't give me was, what does PC stand for? It'll take 10 seconds. It won't take long.
We're a standing committee.
It was a typo. It's for PIC. It is for PIC. Look, we're looking at different sources of funding. We're looking at all options. I don't think we need to take a hard and fast view about where we're going to find the funding. So I think at the right time we will come back and we will disclose and disclose the reasons why we've chosen the option that we would have chosen. Thank you.
Remind ourselves, we've got the Money Bills Act, right? And no Minister of Finance can act outside it. And there are processes that Parliament itself has decided on. And we will all abide by it, the executive and the Parliament, right? Is that okay? All right, in that case, we'd like more discussion on transformation issues also at the next meeting. But if there's something that you want to raise immediately, please raise it. Yeah, okay, there's none. Then can we move on to the last issue? Advocate Jenkins, tell us what Parliament's rules, norms, ethics provide for in this context.
Thank you, Chairperson.
You suggest is a way forward.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chairperson. I think the best place to start is where Honourable Shivambu started, where the powers, privileges and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act. prohibits a person from improperly interfering with the performance by a member of his or her functions. In the rules, there's nothing to deal with this matter as such, but this provision deals with it directly, simply because, as I understand the submission, it was made outside the committee to Mr. Lees, and yes, it attracts the attention of the committee because of what Mr. Lees has said. And if I understand the allegation that it is a threat by the chairperson of the South African Airways board to get her husband to sue Mr. Lees for what was said in the committee, of course that's impossible. We know that the Constitution creates immunity, civil immunity as well, for members for what they've said and produced within a committee. So even what Mr. Lees has said today is protected by the Constitution. You can say what you want as long as you do it within your functions in the committee. So Chairperson, the way forward would be either for the member to take this and see if the crime was committed, and one must have to look at that. I mean, my personal view on that, and I'll just say it, is to improperly interfere means unlawfully interfere, and to threaten someone with a court case is not really unlawful, much like it's not unlawful to threaten someone that you will report them for a crime that they've committed unless they wash your car or whatever stupid example I can think of. But that would not be unlawful. But that is not a decision I must make. The political party or the member can take that to the police and look at it. Chair, for the committee and for Parliament to go forward on this, I would suggest that this matter pertains to governance. The Constitutional Court has, in the last two very big judgments, indicated that Parliament is the center of good governance in South Africa. I think that's even more so when we're dealing with state-owned entities. And for this allegation to come out within the context of providing oversight and to ensure that there is good governance of state-owned entities, that's a matter that needs to be discussed, I think, at the appropriate level, whether it's at the ministerial level or the board level. But that is what we're dealing with here, in my view. So there's nothing that the committee, in summary, can do to say apologize or don't apologize. You don't have that power. Of course, that's a thing that the chairperson of SAA can decide or consider herself. But for the committee to take it forward, if you want to frame it in something, it's a governance issue. And certainly members can't feel threatened that they cannot perform that function that's required of them if they then get sort of phone calls that will prevent them from doing that. So, Chair, that's as much as I can help with this one. Thanks.
I'll ask members to speak and I get some clarity. I see your hand, Thandi. Let us say now, forget this case. Just some clarity quickly. We've got 10 minutes left, right? So that we have now, and we don't discuss these issues again. We have some clarity, it's minuted. Let's say there is somebody, say a member of parliament says something in a committee meeting, and then he or she is at the airport, and then he confronts the person concerned, and that person threatens him in a way similar to what it's alleged that Mrs. Miene did, right? Then what can Parliament do about it in a nutshell?
Parliament can, if I want to say, on behalf of the member, we can refer this to the National Prosecuting Authority, or at least for investigation to the South African Police Service, to say, we have created a piece of legislation that makes this an offense. It's punishable by law. Yeah.
The question I'm asking is, I'm not going to note any hands. I'm seeking clarity as a chair. Let's know what the rules are. May I remind members, there's no party political position on rules. You can't decide that as a portfolio study group here, you're going to have a separate understanding of the rules and another committee. There's no such thing. Go to your chief whips, go to your political parties, go to your policy conferences and change the rules of Parliament. I won't allow that sort of thing here. Please, we haven't got the time. So can we now ask you a question, a concrete question? Question is, if such a thing happens, can't the committee require the person who's accused of this thing to be brought before some subcommittee that looks into it? If there's a case where the person has in fact said that, then surely the committee could ask that person to apologize and refer the matter to the minister concerned and the board concerned to say, your board chair, under your portfolio, in this case the ministers, and the SAA board, if it happened with the SAA, I'm not saying it happened, can't the committee do that?
Yeah, I would think yes, Chair. I mean, we can't enforce anything, but we can make recommendations. And the issue which you've mentioned, that we refer this matter to the executive authority, to the minister, makes a lot of sense, because for me, I see it as a governance issue. is a resistance to submit, I mean, just on the assumption that the allegation stands, it's a resistance to submit to the proper governance structures that's put in place for checks and balances and for value for money. So certainly Parliament has a broad oversight function and a constitutional authority to exercise that, to protect itself from this kind of improper interference or any interference. Parliament can call a member, and Parliament can call any member, any person, to give it information, of course. So what you suggest, certainly it can be done, but not with the conclusion that we can say this must be done. It's
fine.
Yeah.
So in other words, that person has a right of reply, because maybe the member misunderstood. I'm not saying the member is lying that there was an exchange. It could be a misunderstanding or a temporary irritation with each other, and they can settle it outside. So in other words, that member has a right of reply. Final question before I throw it open. You see, I've raised this repeatedly. It is not right, in my view, that with the immunities law and so on, a member can say whatever they want here or in the House. And the right of reply of the person, of member of the public, whose parliament this is, and whom we represent, the public, they have no right of reply. They have to write to the Speaker's office and commission something, and we heard and so on. I don't think that's correct. I've repeatedly raised this. It's not fair, because allegations can be made about people. We as MPs can say whatever we want, and that person's smeared. Their families read about this and hear about it, and they haven't given a chance of reply. So the point I want to make, isn't it fair that we allow Mrs. Mieni to give her side of the story if she so chooses? Because now it's here, I'm sure the media will cover that, right? Because she's not very popular in the media, that exaggerates the problem. So I just think, I'm just asking about fairness. What do you say, Advocate Jenkins, before I throw it open?
Yeah, I would agree, because what we have in the Act, in the Powers and Privileges Act, is a right in terms of Section 25 to have a response recorded. And that's the one that you refer to. You write to the Speaker or the Secretary to Parliament, and because a
yeah, but it's so onerous, it's not
Yes,
fair on the
it is
person.
onerous.
I don't think that's right. All right, look, that's a future thing.
Yeah,
now, can I suggest that we tie this thing up, because we've got 5 minutes left? Now, it is merely a suggestion. The members can decide what you as a majority want to do. The first point I want to make as a guide, so that we save time, I think Parliament must be very, very clear. Firstly, I want some sort of statement from the people who claim they were heckled. If they can write half a page, I want the Speaker's office to be aware of this. We're not going to allow that. Nobody can come here in this democratically elected Parliament and heckle members of the committee. It cannot happen. So I want people to just put it down in writing within a week, even if it's half a page, and I want to refer it to the Speaker's office. Now, similarly, nobody from a state-owned entity or a DG, whoever, can intimidate a member of Parliament. We cannot allow that. There's no debate, in my view, about it. So some action has to be taken, not on this specific matter necessarily, to check the rules and ensure we tighten it. But I don't think we can allow that. In view of that, what I'm suggesting is, members, in fairness to Mrs. Mieni, we give her a brief, the right of reply. Whether she wants to exercise that right or she wants to write back in a written form is something I would like you to consider that we do. Now, having said that, can we hand over, because the implications are, we're not going to discuss these issues again, but we also have to warn members of the public and DGs and wherever they are that you cannot touch members of Parliament. Not in this Parliament, not after the titanic struggles that we fought for to get this Parliament. Not going to be thuggerized here. So, having said that, it's first you had your hand up, then it was, what's our name of our new member, Ms. Mave, peace, and then it was Masitole, and then it's Pinky. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, Clause 7 of the Powers and Privileges Act is
a minute and a half.
It's very clear to us, but it might not necessarily be clear to the members of the public. That's why it's very important that when members of the public are making this type of mistakes, we bring them to our attention. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to plead with Ms. Mieni to actually apologize to Mr. Lees, because Mr. Lees, anything he said in the meeting was protected by the law to say it. So probably you might have not realized what Clause 7 of the Powers and Privileges Act is saying in relation to the matters that has been raised in a meeting. In the same vein, Chair, and you'll remember that I raised this thing before when we were in not G20, in Good Hope Center, as to how members also,
I wrote to the member concerned to remind members, also wrote
no,
to
I'm not reopening that, Chair. I'm trying to mediate. I want us first to make her aware that Clause 7 of the Powers and Privileges Act does not allow her to do that, and if it's possible, because I myself took it upon my shoulders to speak to Honorable Liz, to say in an event that she apologized, is he prepared to accept the apology, Chair, before we take the decision to act, at least so that we have intervened and tried to come with a remedial action, and we are not taking away the fact that it's not allowed, it's not acceptable. We're trying to provide a solution to that. So, Chair, I'm begging the indulgence of the committee.
Fine, okay, we get that.
She must know that it's not allowed, and if possible, can she apologize, Chair?
All right, peace.
Chairperson, just quickly, I thought that your approach to allow her to speak first was the best one because she has not responded to what the honorable.
But I'm asking
member
for
had
guidance from the committee. It's not your turn. It's Peace's turn.
All right.
I'm not going to allow that.
Thanks, Chair, for protecting me. Chair, I think in terms of the Constitution as well,
Out of time, it's 3 minutes, 2 minutes to 1, please, man.
Chair, in terms of
Rights and so on, yeah.
in terms of the Constitution as well, Ms. Moyani has got the right to protection and the right to privacy. And I also want to appeal to Mr. Lies not to follow Ms. Moyani around. I think she also doesn't feel safe. And the only way to try and get people off your back
Chair, point of order.
is to...
My point, it's just frankly a ridiculous statement to make, to suggest that Mr.
No.
Alf Lees is following the chairperson of SAA. I mean, it illustrates the kind of paranoia and madness that
He's
is
right, Peace. Do you have
prevalent
any evidence that
in
he's
the
following her?
SAA board.
Do you have any evidence that he's following her?
Chair, in the previous meeting, if my memory serves me well, there was a statement made by Mr. Lees, and to me, I don't know, it appeared as though he is following Ms. Moyani around. He's checking on everything that Ms. Moyani. I don't know, Chair. I might be wrong. But Chair, please, Ms. Moyani must also be afforded the privacy that she deserves.
Okay, Masatole.
Thank you, Chairperson. Well, it might not be a good thing that is happening, but I think it's got some, Tandi, you must listen. It's to our advantage that as members of parliament who are here not because of our own wisdom, but by the vote of the people, we should relook the members, the act that is protecting us. Because my feeling, Chairperson, every time I come to this committee, is that members of the public are not quite treated with respect. It doesn't happen, it won't happen in my committee. The way people are addressed here is not right.
Oh, it was Pinky, sorry, before Floyd. Pinky, I forgot about Pinky.
Chair, I think, seated here, one of the things that's worrying me is that in as much as we have laws, in as much as we have all these things, I think that whatever the privileges that protect us as members of parliament, we should not abuse some of these things to members of the public.
Can we just clarify? Members of the public are people seated there. You're talking of the entities that appear. So can we distinguish the two here?
Yes.
They're separate matters. So basically, we're talking about abusing people who appear before our committee as part of our oversight. Separate that from people interrupting, which no rule allows for in Parliament. Right, can we go on,
No,
please?
that one, I'm addressing the issue of the board chair. I'm just getting worried and being scared. I mean, from what Honorable Lee said in the last meeting, because this happened in the sitting of the committee, I then started saying, it means all of us, Big Brother is watching where we are sleeping and where we are going. As women, we may not even be safe for that matter, because if you don't relate to him nicely, tomorrow he'll be saying, you slept in this hotel, you did all these things and so on. I don't think it's fair. And how we deal with this matter, Minache, I thought, let's leave it between the two conversations, because it will be his word against her word, and we don't know how she responded and how he responded, and we don't have those conversations on record.
Floyd?
No, Chair, I think the advocate has given a clear interpretation of the whole situation. But one thing which is skipped is that violation of the Powers, Immunities and Privileges Act of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act. There are certain things, when you violate that act, there can be criminal prosecution. So, Honorable Liz, when you go out of Parliament here, you go up straight the road, opposite Parliament, there's a police station there. You must go and open a police case for people who threaten you. If they did threaten you, that is why I wanted to check if she confirms that she threatened him and all of those things. And perhaps, but otherwise, this issue, it's an issue of criminal investigations. It must be subjected to the criminal justice system.
Okay, thank you for that.
And then we'll deal with delinquent behavior.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock. Mrs. Miani, do you want to say anything? You're not obliged to.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I think we need to put this whole thing in context. At this committee, I did not hear Mr. Lees saying I slept at Oyster Box. It's a recorded message. He was at the National Assembly talking in a session in Parliament. My partner is the one—
in the house there?
In the house.
Oh.
And then I explained, and the good thing that I did, our conversation was recorded. Now, he's not saying what he said to me, because I raised it. I said, Mr. Lees, I'm not talking to you as a member of SCOF. I'm talking to you as Mr. Lees. And he even said, can I call you Dudu? And I said, yes, call me Dudu. He said, I slept in a presidential— he said it in Parliament. I've sent you the clip already, Chair. I've forwarded it to you.
Didn't see it.
He said, I slept in a presidential suite in Oyster Box, which cost 50,000 rands. And he wants to check per night. He wants to check if I did not use SAA money or not. He said it in session in the House. Now, I did not hear that, Honorable Chair. My partner sends me a clip which was circulating in the social media. Therefore, after I leave the House, the previous session we had here, after he said, I flew British Airways. Then my partner says, if you don't speak to the honorable member, I will do a man-to-man with him and talk to him and find out what he wants from my family. We were mourning. We had lost my son-in-law. I took my family together with everyone, including my mother. We went to Oyster Box. I even explained to the honorable member that I've been a business person. I can go to Mauritius and spend another 2 weeks there with my family. And because he does not know, I was candid with him on the phone. Now I'm shocked, because I even said, I'm raising this matter because it's a personal thing that I took my family and we went away after the passing of my son-in-law. 50,000 rand for a black person, a woman, to have to book a suite. I even said, is it a crime? If it is a crime, let me be charged. I don't have rights. I am a suspect. I stole at SAA. The people who are stealing at SAA are the ones who hate me today. They are stealing, the reports are showing. It will come out. So, Honorable Chair, I will write a letter and explain in detail and send it to you, Honorable Chair, if you would like. Thank you.
Can I suggest we leave this matter in abeyance? I will confer with the Speaker's office the legal office and so on and decide what we do. But I think the following is reasonable to conclude. One is that there's no evidence. Can we have your attention, Tandi, at least? There is no evidence that ALF is following Mrs. Mieni. I think that's bizarre to suggest. Unless there's evidence, I wait for that. Secondly, if you take a British Airways flight, there are many members of parliament, if you're flying eThekwini, Cape Town, who will also be on the same flight. So you don't have to follow a person to see that they are on a SAA flight. It's reasonable to assume that a DA person or some member of the public alerted ALF to it. Thirdly, I think people have a right to their private lives. And I think it's wrong, if such a thing happened, for members to say that because you're an SAA board chair, therefore you're not allowed to go to the oyster. That's your right, that's your private life. But also on the other hand, if you are a SAA board chair, it is a reasonable question to ask, what are you doing on a British Airways flight? I mean, let me give you an example. Right, okay. I fly Mango, eThekwini, Cape Town, and vice versa. Even when I was a minister, I did it. That's my personal view. But every now and then, I think in the last 5 years, I've flown about 3 or 4 times British Airways. I had no choice. And I'm surprised to see the number of ANC members of parliament there. And when they look at me, they say, oh, Karim, you too, after all your noise 5 years ago in Go. I say, unapologetically, there is no flight. If you're coming from Pongola down there, the last flight out. So I have flown British Airways, I think 5 times in the, check with British Airways, 5 times in the last, no man, once a year or thereabouts. Check with Mango. But now, Minister, I don't think I have any control over Airlink. Those of you who don't know, I told Alf this. There's a direct flight from Cape Town to Pietermaritzburg, 17:45 daily, right? So I fly Airlink, right? But we are paid by the fiscus. I would prefer personally that we support. I hope Pinky's definitely not using British Airways unless we have no choice. But you will be surprised to see who's on a British Airways flight from eThekwini to Cape Town. Yeah. I go once every 6-8 months and I see who's there. But having said that, that's a reasonable thing. So Mr. Lees, I don't care who says what. It's your perfect right to ask the board chair, what are you doing there? Presumably, as I said, there was no other flight, like myself. After having complained, right? What's wrong with flying Mango? I was caught on SA. Minister, you'll be amused. Everybody says, oh, Karim, you are caught. And I tell them, 1 year ago, I flew British Airways. So that's a fair question. On the matter of the oyster thing, Alf, from what I hear, there's no case you have. Can I suggest the following? Can the two of you meet over the phone or whatever and sort this matter out? Failing which, refer the matter to me, and I will take it up with the relevant authorities. Not by this committee. Right, Alf, finally, and then we're closing.
Chairman, absolutely. I don't want to go into the merits of the matter. And Ms. Mnyeni has confirmed that her husband was upset. And in fact, the words that Ms. Mnyeni used...
You have to say all that now.
No,
I'm just saying,
my husband says, sue the bugger. So I don't want to go into the merits because I really don't want to make a big issue.
Yeah. You don't want to go to the police and all that.
No, I mean
fine. Shall we
a
move on?
simple apology would be all that.
Fine,
and
but she doesn't accept that.
And then, Mr. Chairman, in terms of whether I'm following, I mean, I really. I mean, it's so ludicrous, it's a joke, and so I'll treat it as a joke.
Yeah, fine. Okay, thank you all. But can I also ask the two members concerned, Floyd and Mr. Mania, to write to me in 7 days? I want to refer this to Speaker's office and the Secretary's office. We're not going to allow this. No, not at all. Thank you.